Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Villa Park City Council. I hereby call the meeting to order. Steve, will you please call the roll?
Sure. Councilman Pitts? Here. Councilman Miles?
Present.
Councilmember Wu?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Jones?
Here.
Mayor Rossini?
Here.
All present.
Thank you. Today, I'll ask Councilwoman Miles to please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Thank you. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you. The Villa Park City Council and staff welcome you to this meeting, and we encourage your participation. If you wish to address the City Council, please complete and submit a speaker card to the City Clerk before the scheduled meeting item and before the meeting starts, which is now. But you can, obviously, afterwards. Speaker cards can be found in the rear of the chambers, and speakers will be called in individually during the public comment section of the item they wish to speak on. Speakers will be limited to a time period of 5 minutes. Speakers were also able to submit e-comments in writing by 3 p.m. today. Those comments will be read aloud during the public comment section of the item. Let's move on to presentations. Orange County Sheriff's Department, welcome, sir.
Good evening. Actually, it was a really good past month in Villa Park. Total of 313 calls for service. Most of that was our proactivity of our deputies. Only one actual crime was committed, I will say, as far as the property type crimes, and that was somebody that had left their e-bike in their front yard. You know, like I said, they don't deserve to be a victim, but we really, I got to preach this. Don't leave your stuff out. Don't leave your valuables on the front seat of your car. Like I said, you're just creating that opportunity for somebody to take advantage of you. But the thing I'm really proud about actually is our guys were very, very busy in here. We got 6 observed arrests in the city just in the last 30 days. Quite a few warrants, some narcotics violations, possession of stolen property. Luckily, it wasn't possession of stolen property from Villa Park, but it was still possession of stolen property, and multiple people that had warrants for thefts and prior thefts. So these are people that do pass through our city. We also had another DUI arrest, so I'm super proud of my guys for doing that stuff. So I think that brings our total. We're getting close to double digits on DUI arrests for this year. So our guys are really being proactive on that stuff. We did have a couple of minor. We had a lady that was just distracted. She was reaching into her purse, drifted off, and basically had a solo traffic accident. Minor injury. She was transported. The other accident, it reads worse than it is. Technically, it's a hit and run, but it was actually all the cross-country runners from the high school going through and just happened to, get like bumped by the car, and it seemed like the driver kind of like looked at the young lady, and the young lady looked at the driver, and they kind of went, and then they moved on. So, but the lady drove away, so that's why it's a hit and run. So, don't leave the scene of an accident. Moral of the story. And by all accounts, like I said, 4th of July is still very, very busy, but by all accounts, it was much tamer this year than previous years. Our guys were out in full force, and like I said, the best things we can do is really educate everybody about the proper use of fireworks. But as you know, it's very, very difficult, and we are surrounded by a lot of illegal fireworks, and it's one of the most difficult nights in police work to really handle. So all you can really wish you do is contain it, and thankfully we had no fire incidents. I know the chief's phone was very quiet, and likewise on ours, there was not much else besides just some, the noise complaints and stuff. So I'll gladly open it up to any questions. But like I said, knock on wood, it was a fairly uneventful month, considering it was the 4th of July in Villa Park. So I'm happy for that.
Thank you. Colleagues, do you have any questions or comments? Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Captain, would you be able to share with everyone how the email tip line went for 4th of July this year?
Yeah, there was a couple technical glitches, but as far as receiving the tips and acting on them, we received actually on the 4th of July 11 email tips, and every one of them was investigated by our deputies that were out on suppression patrol. And everybody that sent an email received an email response back saying that it was received. Thank you for the tip, and we're going to go. And sometimes there was actually some tips that were kind of vague, and they got an immediate response back. Can you be more specific on the location or on whatever the follow-up question is? So I think it worked fairly well. We got way more tips than we got phone calls to dispatch. It is the busiest night of the year for our dispatch center. The calls literally triple and quadruple on the 4th of July. So the fact that we were able to do our part as a community to mitigate all those calls to our dispatch center, I think it's an experiment. Yes, can we dial it in a little bit better? Of course we could, but I think I think everybody felt at least they were heard. Better than waiting on hold on a half-hour, dispatch line because it's so clogged up. I think most people got an email response after their tip within minutes. So, and then the response was equally that quick. Like I said, though, it's a very, very difficult night for police work, and it's very difficult to catch people in the act. And a lot of times, most of the things that we came across were safe and sane, and those are legal here, right? Not to say that people aren't, sneaking behind our backs, but I had a combination of marked patrol vehicles, and I actually had an unmarked patrol vehicle. And it wasn't to be sneaky or be a ninja and catch people in the act. It was just that's what we had available, and it was kind of unique to see if that would work or change anything. And like I said, most people were fairly well behaved. It's America's birthday, and people love to have a good time. So,
Well, and by contrast, we only had 4 calls last year. So this was a really good addition. So thank you so much for doing
appreciate that. Thank you.
So, sorry, can I?
Go ahead.
So I just want to reiterate, so none of the tips resulted in any kind of citation or?
No.
Yeah.
Colleagues, any further questions? Hearing none, seeing none, I would like to just personally thank you and your deputies for the proactive approach, the traffic stops, the warrants, the DUI enforcement. I know it's difficult in a small city because everybody knows everybody, but those folks that are coming through, and unfortunately some folks that are here that are misbehaving need to be dealt with, obviously with the appropriate level of enforcement. And I think your deputies and the Sheriff's Department has done an outstanding job of that. I really appreciate the in-view patrol and the proactive approach that you're taking. So my commendable to you and to your team. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
That's it. Fire Authority, sir. No fires report. Enough said. Report done. I was kidding.
Yeah, nothing to report. Nothing to report. The
Sure,
captain
there's quite
took
a few
it.
things to
Great
report.
4th of July. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and Council. Thanks for the opportunity to come up and share with you. Since our last meeting on June 25th, we had 97 units dispatched to 36 incidents within the city of Villa Park. Again, it's our summertime. I'm going to share a little bit about the wildland season, but during the summer, we've got swimming and brush fires is what we're most concerned with. It seems like more times than not. I shared from this location a month ago some experiences I've had over the years with drownings and whatnot, and I was proven true again on last weekend in another city, not in Villa Park, but another one of my cities. Thankfully, it's a great outcome. But it was a young child, and it was during the middle of a party, like I'd mentioned before, with adults around, barbecue going, and thankfully there were some other kids that were there that noticed this child was under the water and not moving, and they had to jump in and get her out of the water. Good outcome, fortunately, this time. But I just want to remind everybody that it's not typical. It's not always just the isolated small child that slips into the water. And so I just really implore and urge everyone to make sure that they have a lifeguard or somebody watching the water. We have those water watcher tags. You can make your own, but please just do it. Be intentional about it and identify somebody that, hour by hour or 30 minutes by 30 minutes that their sole job is to watch the water, so we don't have these occurring so often. On to the brush fire season, wildfire season. it is in full force throughout the state, certainly in our neighboring agencies, neighboring counties, and up and down the state of California. Fortunately, we haven't had too many here. Most of the fires to date have been held to 5 acres or less within our county, which is outstanding. But your OCFA has been very busy. I just want to share, we've had up to 4 strike teams out from throughout the county, through our operational area, for the better part of the last month. They've been going out to fires, coming back, and I think at any one time over the last week, we had approximately 60 personnel out of county supporting other agencies throughout the state. And then as the winds start to surface, that's when we get the help from the rest of the state later on in the year, should we have any incidents. Our folks from Community Risk Reduction are out ensuring all of the weed abatements being completed, and so that we're in the best shape we are when the winds do hit in the fall. That's the end of my report, unless you have any questions for me.
Colleagues, go ahead.
So I would just, if you turn your attention to the screen, would like to congratulate Chief Winsolar on his unit citation at the Orange County Fire Authority's Best and Bravest Award ceremony. So congratulations. I'm sure I speak on behalf of the whole council when I say it's well-deserved, and thank you so much for your service.
Thank you, I appreciate that, and thank you for coming. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Thank you again. Appreciate it. Next up, public comments. At this time, we will review comments from the members of the public to address any off-agenda items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council, provided that no action may be taken on off-agenda items unless authorized by law. We will also be reviewing public comments on each agenda item. Steve?
Sorry, we have no items, we have a number of speakers, but they're all for a specific item later in the agenda.
All right, then we'll go ahead and move on to the public hearing. We will now move on into our agendized public hearings. Our first hearing is the review to waive reading in full of all ordinances and resolutions on the agenda. I will now open the hearing. Steve, can I have the staff report?
Thank you. This is the monthly item we put on there to allow us to conduct efficient and expedited council meetings. We'd recommend approval.
Thank you. Council members, questions? Nope. Any members of the public? Doubt it. Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion on this?
I'll move it.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Let's take a vote. There you go.
Passes by a 5-0 vote.
Thank you. Next public hearing is the Wall and Fences Code Amendment. I will now open the hearing. Steve, may I have a staff report, please?
Thank you.
Can I make a point of clarification, please? So I think my property is impacted by letter D as in dog on the recommended changes to the ordinance. So out of abundance of caution, I will not participate in discussion or voting for letter D for that item.
Thank you. We anticipated that, and Steve has a kind of game plan to address that.
Thank you. You recall this item came up several months ago. The council had asked for some additional information. We're now returning to that. There is a matrix that's provided in here, and there are 7 different specific items with changes. My recommendation is that we vote on those individually before we address the full package of recommendations later, so that the recommendation is to introduce the ordinance, but I would with items A through G that are approved in that ordinance, I would recommend that we take action on that, so we're not approving an ordinance and going back and amending that accordingly. So Justin will give you an update. This again was heard, I believe, in May, if I'm not mistaken, and it addresses several portions of our ordinance that in the past we've found that have been inconsistent. So there's some cleanup actions, and then there's some further actions. We're trying to get some clarification and policy direction from the council. So Justin, you want to?
Yeah, hold on one second. So since you're going to recuse on D, we're supposed to do D first?
Oh,
Okay, so
Okay.
we're going to do D. You got to leave for D, then you vote on D, and then you come back and you do the rest.
I'll call you back on D.
okay.
That's it. I'm sorry. I should have told you.
Can I sit since I'm?
You can, but don't say anything.
I won't say.
He's wanted to say that for
I
a long
wanted to
time.
say that for so long.
So,
So D.
yes.
D?
Yes, address D first.
D. Okay. Well, in regards to D, nothing has changed.
Well, why don't you just explain what D
But
is?
D is related to allowing taller walls and fences in the front 20-foot setback for properties in Villa Park. So it would allow people to have walls and fences up to 6 feet in height in their front yard setback within the first 20 feet. Right now, it's only allowed up to 3.5 feet. So that's what D is proposing to change, to go from 3.5 feet up to 6 feet for properties on the listed streets. And the reason that we selected those streets was because of the high traffic volume and the fact that higher walls and fences can provide noise mitigation and more privacy for residents on those streets.
So for clarification, the streets he's specifically talking to are those properties fronting Cannon, those on Santiago Boulevard between Meats, looping all the way around to Lemon Street, so it does that left, if you will, or right, or left, I guess. The Center Drive between Lincoln and Serrano Avenue, Taft Avenue, and Villa Park Road. Those are the ones that specifically are permitted as the high-traffic areas. So just for clarification, it's there.
Thank you. Any questions, colleagues? Any members of the public want to speak on this?
Just as to D.
Just item D.
As to item D. Okay.
So we should take a motion, vote on this, and then we can resume the full council.
Looks
Then
like
you
no
go.
questions from my colleagues. Looks like no public comment from the audience. Do I have a motion on this?
I will move it.
I have a motion. I have a second. Please vote on item D, David.
Passes by a 4-0-1 vote. Or, not abstention, but a recusal, so.
Thank you. Next item is, well, it's the same item, number 2, but it's what, A through G except for D?
Correct.
You've already voted for D. You can't talk about D anymore. That's already going to be part of whatever you approve.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I'm
Yeah, I'm being very precise.
so good having an attorney here. Go ahead.
Yes, so just a brief update. So the city planning and engineering departments collected some data and drove around the city to analyze whether there would be potential line of sight and vehicular safety impacts from things like taller hedge walls and taller walls in the front yard setback. And we concluded that there are not significant negative impacts for vehicular safety as it pertains to allowing these taller walls. And if we do find any safety concerns, either now or in the future, we are going to make the property owners aware and send a courtesy letter to them. And so because of that, the only change is that we're proposing to permit these hedge and shrub walls within the front setback and rear and side as well without any height limitations. So I'll be happy to answer questions or concerns that anybody may have about any of the other agenda itemized issues.
Colleagues, do you have any comments or questions? Any members of the public wish to speak on this? Or
We have
you
no
have a
request to
question?
speak.
I didn't see any hands or motions over here, so
Regarding B, Justin, is it possible to specify that lighting fixtures can only be on the front of the property? Because I would just hate to see someone like surround their property with 2-foot-high lighting fixtures on all of their walls.
Yeah, we can absolutely do that. If I can create language for that, and then in the second reading, you all can review that.
So
mean,
for
are my
clarification,
colleagues
that
in
is
support?
allowable at this point. So the current ordinances do allow all around the yard. So this would be a change to the current ordinance.
Yeah. So is the rest of the council supportive of that? 'Cause
So-
these lighting fixtures are,
Why don't
can
we
be
deal
up
with
to
B,
2
why don't we
feet
deal with
high.
B separately? So you guys may have dissenting opinions or whatever. Why don't we do with that? So make a motion on B that you would, my recommendation, you make a motion to be
Amend.
specific, to amend B to include only the front yards, right? Justin, is that how? Yes.
Can I ask a question on that? If somebody felt they had a compelling reason to go ahead and put lighting all around, like maybe they live up against, I don't know, a portion of the city that's quite dark, could they come and request a variance?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So the ordinance, and on all of these things, they can always request a variance. Variances are just item by item, depending on specific circumstances, if the owner has the ability to request that. So, yeah.
So,
I'm,
I'm sorry, go
yeah,
ahead.
no, I'm more thinking just the height of this. I mean, this is 2-foot high light fixtures.
With respect to that variance on something as small as that, is there the same cost involved? I don't believe there is, but is that the case?
Yes, it would be the same for all variances.
Okay, so, and remind us all of the cost of a variance so that our ever diligent and vigilant audience is paying attention to this.
It's I don't know off the top of my head, but around $3,600.
$3,600. Are we sure we want to? I don't know. That seems like a lot of money for something on a light waiver. Now, if we're talking about adding square footage to a house, that seems to be more reasonable. So I think we might want to press pause on that.
Well, these
Or
are
come up
light
with a different
fixtures
idea.
that are on top of walls and fences, so it's not keeping anyone from putting lighting in their yard in any other way.
Colleagues, comments, questions?
Do we know if there are any homes that have that now?
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure. I would have to look into that.
And if they did, would they be grandfathered in?
Yes.
For
Just want to make sure
correct?
that,
We
just
would.
want to make sure we have that on the record.
Yes, we would.
Because there's going to, people that find out and their neighbor's going to say something and then we're going to have an issue.
Yes, we would grandfather.
Yep. Now, Justin, per G, everything is grandfathered in, correct? Like,
Existing legal nonconforming
okay.
are, right, Justin?
So that refers to shrub
Oh,
and
it's
hedge
just
walls. Yeah.
shrubs and hedges.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but as a matter of law within our code, if something predates the zoning ordinance change, that is grandfathered in as a matter of law. So this is just specific as to this one because they grow.
Okay.
I kind of think maybe, I can see both sides with Mayor Pro Tem's recommendation, but also, I'd like more information on this. I don't know, can we do maybe a substitute motion to bring this particular one back as far as the lighting features to see how that, if there are current?
Well, it wouldn't affect any current, that's the point. It's
Because
grandfathered, it would be
It's grandfathered in and
so
legal
it would not
non-conforming.
affect anything that's currently existing. It would only be those new items that are, if somebody's coming in and saying, I want to add, moves in or adds, I want to do something. So that's what we were just talking about. It would post-date.
Nothing on our design plans that would potentially be in the works?
No.
That people would be
No, not-
surprised by? Okay.
No.
I'm just asking the question because if they get hit with a $3,500 bill over a light, they're going to lose their mind.
Well,
And we
right
can all
now, the
understand
current code
why.
allows up there. So if you change that,
Right,
They need a variance.
Then they'd have to do it.
right. And that's my point.
well, but I'm not aware of any projects right now that have.
Okay,
to
that's
have
all I'm
that.
concerned about.
Nothing that has it.
Nothing that's under our
Nothing that's in the
review.
mill. I mean, that doesn't
if
mean-
somebody comes in, after the second reading of this, then, it's on them. They've had their opportunity, they've had their,
Well, no plans that we've seen at this
okay.
point have that in there. Doesn't mean somebody hasn't working with an architect to build them in right now.
sure,
but,
that's on them, but nothing under our purview.
Nothing that
That's
we've
all
seen.
I'm concerned about.
Yeah.
Mayor,
What-
briefly?
Go ahead, sir.
First of all, isn't like a 2-foot tall light like a lighthouse?
Yeah.
That's a pretty
It's
big
pretty
light.
big. It's pretty big. That's why I'm supportive of what she's saying. I'm just playing devil's advocate because it's a change. That's all I'm
Yeah,
saying.
yeah, yeah. And it's to the fees. So the whole point of fee recovery for any permit within the city is to cover cost time, right?
Right.
So if somebody comes in, does a project, you don't want the general community subsidizing somebody's project.
100%.
The person should recover the cost.
And we've been doing that for years.
Yeah, right. And that's allowed under Prop, whatever it is. So if a certain situation comes up and somebody just draws a light on a plan and it gets approved, you can always lower that, waive the fee to, if it takes,
That could be a condition of approval.
yeah,
Right.
a half hour Justin's time, so it's only $2,000.
I was just going to say 1,500.
Right?
Okay.
So-
All right. Sounds good. I have no real objection then to that.
So when you say a condition of approval, is that something that,
If they went for a variance.
It's only a 2-foot that they're requesting and we don't want to. So that would be something that council's prerogative to do as part of the approval process.
then, to play devil's advocate, why don't we just say that the city ordinance states that, we make the change that's proposed where, you no longer can put the 2 feet high lights around your entire property. And all it needs is council approval. That's it. Not even a variance, just a council approval.
Well, going back to the point that Todd just made, it's to recover our costs. So if someone comes in with a variance request, we still have to do the analysis and the work. So that doesn't go away because the council has, so if they still want to come in for a variance, we still have to do the staff report, the analysis, et cetera. So that's the point that we're trying to get to, is that, so it's a cost recovery, it's not a profit type
Right.
of thing.
It
So-
just concerns me a little bit because I feel like we're getting into the property owner rights realm. And you would hope that people would be good neighbors. And if I'm going to build a house and you're my neighbor, I'm going to say like, hey, would you mind if I put this light up so it's not, bothering you? But it's interesting. It's an interesting.
As to that point, so you don't have to call something a variance. People just use the term variance for any deviation from a code, but a lot of codes, ours included in certain circumstances, have things called administrative adjustments. So you just write that into the code and say, okay, well, if you have a 2-foot light in your backyard, all it needs is, staff approval and would be permitted if you wish, so.
Yeah, so an administrative adjustment is, I think, 10%, isn't it, what it is, Justin?
25%.
25%, and it's city manager, and I'm pretty uncomfortable with that. I make most of them come back here because that's a huge, variance that I'm approving without your policy call. So I'm not particularly, granted, you may trust me, but if you write that in there as an administrative variance, that may be any potential staff down the road that may have that ability. So I'd be cautious, and I would recommend that you just say it's a variance, they have to come to the council, and you have the ability to waive the cost.
Yeah.
You can say, hey, look, this is no big deal, we're going to waive it, or we're going to reduce the cost, or whatever like that. You have the opportunity to do that. So you have the prerogative to control it, but I don't think you want to absolve your control before you even get to see what's coming down your pike. That would be my recommendation.
Aren't we getting into like designs?
Well, and my thinking is just, to your point about property rights is, all of us have property rights. And I would just, hate to come home and see that I'm looking at the backside of a 2-foot-high floodlight, for example, that is within view of like my pool, but is maybe obscured by, something in the neighbor's yard to where they wanted that lighting, but it's really unsightly from my side, and
No, it's
right
very
now,
logical.
Yeah, right now we don't have any mechanism to address that at all. Our code is just silent on that point.
So just for the record, so could we specifically have your substitute motion on this in dimensions and size and what your concerns are? And then I'm going to call the question.
Yeah, I would just like to amend it. Oh, Councilman Wu, though, did you have a comment? Yeah,
By all means.
before I make my motion.
I think we are just discussing between the neighbors, putting a 2-foot light. I'm also seeing a different scenario if the owner's side yard or backyard actually facing to one of the street that we just mentioned, maybe Villa Park. They have 2-foot lights on top of their backyard. As right now it's legal, and they put a row of them. When you're driving down on Villa Park, nighttime, that's gonna draw your attention. That can cause traffic accident or, short time blindness to your eyes while you're driving darkness. So that's why I do agree, Mayor Pro Tem's proposal kind of limit the 2 feet lights only in the front, but not, the sides and the back. Just again, more property rights between the neighbors and also the safety to big streets that they are not facing any neighbors, but they are facing the public drivers.
Thank you for your comments.
Okay.
Just for the record, can we have, Councilman Pitts, did you have a comment?
I'm good.
Okay, go ahead.
So I would like to amend B. The proposed ordinance right now states lighting fixtures up to 2 feet in height shall be permitted atop walls and fences, and amend it to say in the front only.
So if, say, somebody had an athletic court in the rear yard, a batting cage, a tennis court, something like that, would that affect that in any way, shape, or
We
form?
have
No.
a different ordinance address lighting for basketball and tennis courts already on the books. That's a different ordinance.
Just trying to make sure that we have that on the record because that's something logical
Yes.
that would come
And that
up.
has even how the lights face, it has to face downward, it has to be, coverings on certain types of coverings, et cetera, for
Perfect.
those things.
Thank you. Sir,
You had someone that wanted to make a comment.
did we have somebody that wanted to make a comment?
Sir, on the back row, did you want to make a comment? You raised your hand.
I actually wanted a clarity about that for basketball courts.
Could you- Okay.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you. All right. Thank you for your motion. I have a motion. I'm happy to second that motion. If there's nothing further, let's go ahead and vote, please.
So for clarification, what are we voting on? Because I want to make sure, are we voting just on
An
B at this point?
amendment to B.
So, and that would include the wording, be lighting fixtures up to 2 feet in height shall be permitted atop walls and fences in the front yard only. Okay. Got that, Justin? That passes 4-1 with Councilwoman Miles opposing.
Thank you.
So now the balance is A, C, E, F, and G.
A, C, E, F, and G. Okay. Justin?
No
anything
further
to add?
comments?
Okay.
Now, if you want to take them all as a group, or if you want to take them individually, we've itemized them because of just exactly what's happened. People have specific concerns or issues on certain ones, so it's your prerogative, Mayor and the council.
If
If I can make a comment.
Go ahead.
please, Mayor. The comment I would like to only make is regarding the shrub hedges in the front yard allowing unlimited heights. The comment I would like to make, I certainly understand, including myself, I would like to have privacy for my home. I am trying to look at our fire department and police department, their personnel perspective. If we have majority of the property, fortunately, as of now, I think probably only 5% or 10%. I could be wrong, Justin. That's my guess. Property have shrubs or hedges, probably 3-story high. My concern for allowing this to pass without any height limit is, again, if there's any emergencies, there's a possibility, cause the delay for the fire department and the police department to get into your property, if either put out the fire or apprehend any criminals or bad behavior or burglaries. So that's something that I would like to just say out loud for the public to hear. Outside of that, I don't have any other objection.
Do you want
besides
to
that
address
height.
item A separately, because that's the one we're talking about here? Because that basically says shrubs and hedges function like walls and fences shall be permitted in all setback areas without height restrictions, including the 20-foot front yard setback. That's what I believe, that's the item I think you're talking about, just for clarification.
Correct, that is. And I mean, I feel before I make any official motions, if I so choose, I would like to hear from our fire department and police department from their own insight, because this is what they deal with daily, not me. I only look at the privacy. Personally, I like the privacy, but I also had to see it. I feel we have to see it from our professional perspective.
If I could just have, for their benefit, since they're being asked to comment on it, and they may not be familiar with all of the nuances and the details of it, can you please read to them what they're being asked to comment on from a public safety perspective? And then, obviously, we'll have public comment. We're going to take this item individually, then we'll move on to the balance if there's no disagreement.
So I think just to the point here is that I think the councilman is asking, will the no height limit affect your emergency response or any service-oriented calls that you might have or reaction to calls if there is no height limit? Right now, there is a height limit that we have, right, Justin? There's a height limit. So this would allow, whatever. Would that affect your ability to respond, your response times, or your reaction to responses? I think that's what you're asking, isn't it, Councilman?
So right now it's 3.5 feet. So basically, you can see into all the properties. This would make it so,
As you
wouldn't-
approach them from the front.
Yes.
And this is for all properties throughout Villa Park, not specific intersections.
Nope.
So while they're having a moment to kind of digest that, because I think this is a bit of a curveball for them,
Mayor? I'm sorry.
I too share some concern about that from a public safety perspective when you cannot view the front entrance to a home. Also, I share that concern with respect to dealing with combustibles. I think there's an issue there. I understand privacy, I understand property rights, especially in the high traffic areas. I think it's important. I think that's a shrewd move to have a little bit of permissible height with walls. But I think having shrubs and combustibles that go beyond that 3 feet in height or whatever the magic minimal number is or maximum number is, I have very serious concerns about that. I'm not talking about trees in your front yard. I'm talking about a shrub or hedge that acts like a wall. And that leaves me with some concern. So, Councilman Pitts, you had a comment, and then maybe we'll get back to these
Yeah, I
gentlemen.
was going to get my
Okay.
One other thing I think we need to consider, take into consideration as it relates to this, we're not a overly proactive city code, police, the things that are going on in the city from a code enforcement perspective. And I'm worried that as plants grow, we're going to create an undue amount of work on the city's part to have to go around and send letters and do all kinds of things to cut your trees because it's now over the height limit. So we've got to be careful and cautious about creating more work for ourselves and being proactive. That makes sense.
Can I make a comment?
I certainly can understand that. I think the unique difference here is that we're not talking about trees per se. That's my distinction, and I would hope that that's reflected in what we're all thinking about here. I'm talking about hedges and shrubs that act as a wall that you physically cannot see through. A
That's
tree.
specifically addressed.
Yeah, a tree that has branches that are open that allow even a minimal amount of light, a very dense tree would certainly be exempt from that. But a hedge or a dense bunch of bushes that act exactly like a wall that do not allow light in or the eye to see even one scintilla into the property, that's my issue. So,
Mr. Mayor,
Can I make
follow up to that, please.
sure, of course.
I have hedges in my yard that are 20 feet tall.
Right. And I have some
I have-
in my rear yard that
And
are
I
similar.
have to cut them twice a year to keep them manageable. And fortunately, for the neighbor, it's only about 6 or 8 feet.
Right,
Mine's 20 feet.
right.
So I have to maintain it twice a year just so
Right.
so I mean, whether it's a hedge or a tree or whatever, everything grows as natural.
No, I understand that.
That's my only point, and we don't want to create a situation, I don't think, code enforcement.
My concern is only the front yard. What you do on your side yard, what you do in your rear yard, that's your benefit. You have a lovely house. I've been to your house, and thankfully that is not in the front yard. And those folks that live on those busy street corners, I could see perhaps a little bit of a deviation there. But for the general populace, I don't think that is a good safety idea, my personal point of view. And I think that echoes what Councilmember Wu is saying. Councilwoman Miles?
Thank you. I got a note here from a resident. Spectrum's not showing the meeting. Do we know if that's accurate or?
Transmitting it, Spectrum's not, I don't know.
Okay.
It's on the
Okay.
website, it's just, so we're
I just saw it
transmitting,
come
it's
through.
not.
Okay. Thank you. So as far as points raised, great points. I still have to go back to, I agree with Councilman Pitts. I think having to have somebody constantly, watch and oversight and send the letters and whatnot. And then I go back to kind of the property owner's rights, and I feel like that's tipping into the HOA kind of envelope. And I know a lot of people take a lot of pride in their homes here in Villa Park. And, like Councilman Pitts mentioned, He trims his twice a year. They are beautiful. I don't particularly have any shrubs, but I know that there are homes within Villa Park that do, and they are lovely. So I kind of feel like if we start dictating how tall shrubs and bushes can be, then we're just a little step away from dictating something else and something else and something else. So
I think we're miles away, candidly. Go
it
ahead.
gets a little closer. So I'm not in favor of putting a height limit.
As it states right now, we are already dictating how high the shrub's supposed to be. It's 3.5 feet. That's
Right.
already so-called dictated.
Well, it's
But
3.5
I'm
feet.
more,
It's in the same zone as it's the height in the zone that it's in. So if it's a wall, it's 6 feet from the side. If it's the front, it's the 3.5.
I'm just saying, having lived in an HOA, we're miles away from that kind of
I know.
Gestapo atmosphere.
Oh, you used the word this time.
Well, because I've lived in one, and they can be like that. I hate to say that.
Before their time.
It's awful. We are not like that, and that's why I moved to this city, and I think all of us have. I think you raise a great point. We're currently looking at some things at 3.5 feet, and what we have is working. I mean, if somebody already has it in the ground, we're not going to ask them to cut them in half. It's a consisting, right, non-conforming consisting use. But at the same time, do we want somebody to buy up 10 homes and turn it into, because we've had somebody do that in the city and turn it into a compound. We had somebody also try to do that. So, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, as I stated back in May, I don't really have much of an appetite to go around and measure people's shrubs and hedges and send them a letter if they're getting too tall. You know, I agree with Councilwoman Miles and Councilman Pitts when I just think that's getting into an area that's just, you know, really obtrusive for our residents. And we've had, you know, athletes and celebrities move here. And if you notice, those are some of the homes that have the really tall hedges. You know, they want their privacy. They don't want someone driving by and just being able to have a camera on top of their car and see over their wall. They do want a little more height there for their privacy, and I support that here, so.
I think we've given our two gentlemen enough time of our own bantering. Let's hear some public safety professionals.
Mayor and council, thank you. Thank you for the time to think about a response to this. First off, thank you for the concern for responders, both law enforcement and the fire department. We do appreciate that. A couple questions, I guess, and maybe for Justin. As far as the hedges, is there a limit to the setback or how far from the house? that would
They
be?
would be allowed right up to the property line in the front.
Up to the, okay. How far from the house? Is there a requirement?
No, there's no requirement in terms of being set back from the house.
So
Okay.
there's no existing.
There's not. Okay. Typically, if I went to our inspectors, they're going to ask me what the access is and the water supply, and those are their biggest issues. You know, to be able to get an engine in a truck and whatnot to make access. As far as the response for us, as long as there's not, and it sounds like if it's within the property line, it shouldn't impede our ability to respond according to the standard. And then, but I certainly would recommend anybody that does this. You know, I've been on plenty of wildland incidents up and down the state where the ornamental vegetation near the home catches an ember and there goes the house. And so it does happen. So I just recommend everybody to go to our website, ocfa.org/RSG, to look at recommendations on the types of ornamental vegetation they can use for those, what would be recommended, and certainly not recommended anywhere near the home. We've got specific distance requirements in there that are recommended to protect people's homes. And then in addition to that, the area, if it's allowed in all of the city, there could be specific areas in the city that are in the higher fire danger areas that might need to get an inspection from our inspector. So I can certainly follow up with our community risk reduction side if you have any further questions of me. But as far as the initial questions, response capabilities, or our other concerns with them, I don't see that coming up as an issue for the fire department side.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir? Got to get both sides of the equation. I
Maybe
figured
we
it
should
might
make
be.
them arm wrestle for it.
Oh, no.
Not to say that we don't care, but we don't care. We are, my people are trained to adapt and overcome. We go into a variety of different terrains, and we have zero control over that. We have the tools and the training to overcome any sort of environment. So if you have any questions, I'll get more specific, but that's kind of where my head's at with it. So
Thank you. We appreciate both of your expertise and point of view.
That's really the reason why I brought it up. I just want to hear from the professional. I mean, if they have no preference either way, or they don't care, quote, captain, I would have no issue with it.
Okay. Do we have any members of the audience that have?
Nobody submitted any.
Okay. Anybody now? After all that bantering? I'm pretty sure you can tell which direction this is going to go. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that A is approved as written, that shrubs and hedges functioning like walls and fences shall be permitted in all setback areas without height restrictions, including the 20-foot yard setback.
Okay.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Everybody please vote. Okay. Now, maybe, we hope, the remainder.
C, E, F, and G.
Okay. Comments, Justin?
No comments.
Okay. All right. Do we need to hear about these? Anybody in the audience wish to comment on these?
See no requests.
Okay.
So moved, Mayor.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Okay. Motion and a second. Everybody please vote.
Passes 5-0.
Okay.
So as presented, if we were go to the recommended actions, A through G all passed by a majority. So the recommendation would be item number 3, introduce ordinance 24-632 for first reading and move items as approved, A through G, to a second reading with B amended accordingly as voted and approved by the council. I think that's inclusive of all the actions taken.
Okay.
So the action that the council would need now is vote on item 1, 2, and 3, which are just basically address the CEQA issue, conduct a public hearing, which we've done, and number 3, approve A through G, the first reading with the amendment to B, and schedule, and the next next reading would be in our August regular city council meeting, at which time, should the council so approve it, it would go into effect within in 30 days after approval. The second reading will include the adjustment made to item B. So you know that will be pre-edited into it. Okay? So are we clear? I hope that's clarified a little bit. Okay?
Thank you. Clear as mud. We appreciate you. Consent calendar, items 3.
I didn't know you need to vote
We
on
have
those
to-
3.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
I'll-
sorry.
I'll-
I just got so excited, went right through.
I'll make the,
Motion.
am I allowed to since D,
Yeah,
okay,
can't you?
yeah. Then I'll make the motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Everybody please vote. This button's not working. There we go.
Passes 5-0.
All right. Getting too excited here. All right. Consent calendar items. Thank you, Justin. 3 through 7. Now we will consider our consent calendar. All items on the consent calendar are considered routine and are usually enacted by one motion, approve the recommended action listed on the agenda. Any member of the city council, staff, or public may request an item be removed from the consent calendar for discussion or separate action. Council members, are there any items from number 3 through 7 that you would like to remove from the consent calendar?
I'd like to remove item 6.
So noted. Item 6 removed. Do we have any members of the public that have asked to have anything removed?
No.
Any other council members wish to have items removed? Okay, may I have a motion on the balance?
So moved.
I have a motion and I have a second. Everybody please vote. Item number 6, please.
Thank you. So I want to say thank you to staff for putting together the review, and I know LEAC also was very much involved in this. I'm pulling this item to request unanimous support for the formation of an e-bike ad hoc committee, which I would like to propose, and I have not asked Mayor Pro Tem yet, but I would like to propose that Mayor Pro Tem and I co-chair this ad hoc committee on e-bikes,
Just so, before we go too far, it's not, that's not an agendized item. You can request it be agendized for the
okay.
next regular meeting.
I am, okay, thank
That's how you
you.
would do it.
Clarify, yes. So I am requesting, thank you, that we agendize item 6 because I would like to request that the city council,
But we have a legal requirement to respond to the grand jury, so that's why we have to approve item number 6. You can as a give direction to return in August or whenever month you want to establish an e-bike
so
ad hoc.
can I still say my comments?
Yeah, you can, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying that you can't, I'm just trying to clarify where you go with your comments
Well,
versus.
I know I'm going to say, yes, of course, we need to approve the recommended, grand jury report needs to have response or whatnot. So, yes, so let me get that off the table. I'm not recommending that we do not go forward with the recommendations of reporting to the grand jury. That is a given. Subsequent to that, I am requesting that we agendize for next month the formation of an ad hoc committee that Mayor Pro Tem Jones hopefully accepts as a co-chair with me, and it would include myself, Mayor Pro Tem Jones, a current resident, Mrs. Patty Whitman, who co-authored the grand jury report on e-bikes, and involving perhaps, I haven't asked them yet, the principal of Cerro Villa and the principal of Villa Park High School, along with a representative from law enforcement. And the reason is this. So our city's unique circumstances necessitate proactive measures, especially in light of the lack of legislation specific to e-bikes from Sacramento. So rather than waiting for Sacramento to come up with legislation to make this a priority, forming an ad hoc committee of community members and stakeholders that might have a different perspective and who are also not part of the LEAC. So having Mayor Pro Tem Jones on there would be helpful because she is part of LEAC, but also very involved in the schools, so she could help liaison between the principals at the 2 schools I mentioned. And it allows us to take some proactive steps. Like I said, instead of waiting, this is a really important issue. And while I understand that the Law Enforcement Advisory Committee, that's LEAC, has been discussing this, and I agree with their assessment, it's crucial to involve those community stakeholders. The response to the grand jury report, a lot of that was saying that we didn't have the resources to be able to make some of the changes, and so I really feel like we shouldn't be limited by the lack of resource constraints shouldn't hinder our ability to get the ball rolling and be able to start talking about maybe some potential ordinances. So we can use newly drafted ordinances from city like Huntington Beach or Laguna Niguel, where they simply just do common sense, logical things like intentionally lifting one or more wheels in the air or riding on a sidewalk. Just get the ball rolling and start talking about it. Once the draft is complete, then we would turn it over back to the council and the staff, and this ad hoc committee would not incur any added costs to the city. And I believe that by convening this ad hoc committee, we can gather perspectives, guidance, and expertise to develop effective strategies for managing e-bike usage in our community and helping to keep all residents safe, not just those on the e-bikes, and stay ahead of any potential litigation that results from that. And any potential legislation that could be coming down the pipe is taking too long, and I think it's too important. So that's it. That's my
Could I, just a couple
Comment.
quick things. Because the committee, just forewarning, it'll be a Brown Act committee, have to be public noticed, et cetera. Number 2, the city's response, just for clarification for those listening, the only issue we had about resources is we can't verify the findings they made countywide. As far as the recommended actions, we don't, we're moving forward on those as recommended. It's the findings. I can't verify that every city does or doesn't have some ordinances or those kinds of things. So that's where we said there are limited resources, and I wouldn't use resources to say, well, what is San Juan Capistrano doing with their e-bikes or something like that. That's where we drew the line. So we don't have the resources to go in and verify what all the other cities are doing. With respect to the recommended actions by the grand jury, we have either are in the process of implementing or moving forward on them. Just, I wanted to clarify that.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't make that clear. And that was the purpose of the ad hoc, is that the ad hoc committee could do that. They could go and find out what San Clemente's doing. You know, one email to the mayor of Huntington Beach, and I got this. Another to the mayor of Laguna Niguel, and I got, you know, the ordinance there. So that's my point in saying that we could do that. So that was it. So,
So that would be the direction. So you're not voting today
can't vote.
on the establishment, but you're only voting to give staff direction to return in the August meeting with the proposed ad hoc committee and the membership as so outlined.
Correct. And so does somebody need, don't you need two people to put it on the agenda?
Well, no, if the council, if you make that as part of the motion to approve this,
Then I make that as part of the motion.
then you would need to have a second to approve the motion, right? And but that's, it would already be incorporated into it.
Well, that's my motion.
Oh, I'll second.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second on item 6.
Discussion.
And did you want to have a point of order on that, or?
It's
discussion
okay.
point?
Tell me why we wouldn't just incorporate this in LEAC and invite the stakeholders to come to the meetings and participate and be a part of it. I mean, it seems like to me that'd be the most logical. We already have law enforcement involved. We have people in the community involved. Why wouldn't we just make that part of what LEAC's currently doing? Why establish a whole nother committee that Steve is going to have to support with his limited resources?
A couple of reasons. One, because I know that there are current people that are not involved in LEAC, and two, because it wouldn't have to cost the city, incur any costs if that ad hoc committee were the ones to be able to go out and do the footwork outside of an ad hoc committee. You understand? So if we met and we decided, hey, we need some information from Santa Ana and Costa Mesa or whatever, then the ad hoc, one of us in the ad hoc committee could then go and get that and bring it back to the next. Plus, I don't know how often the ad hoc meets. So,
As an ad hoc, they could meet unlimited.
I'm sorry, I understand that. I don't know how often LEAC meets.
LEAC is by resolution 4 times a year is what I think it says in the resolution, if I'm not mistaken.
And the ad hoc has a sunset and it has a start and an end. So we could even say, look, we only have a year and a half to do this. And you know what I mean? Whereas LEAC is part of the actual committee assignments. This would, by definition, be an ad hoc where we say, okay, we have until June of 2027. You know what I mean? So that.
Back to my point, it's still going to require the city to be involved because it's not only an ad hoc, but it's a Brown Act committee. So it's going to require that Steve and his resources be involved in the meetings and collection of information, preparing information and things of that nature. So I just caution you about, we talked about this with other committees some time ago and talked about reducing the amount of workload that we had in the city by doing this. So I just caution you about it, that's all.
And I appreciate that, but I think that we're talking about public safety. So this is, I think, rises to the occasion and level of it's important enough.
Okay. Councilmember Wu.
Thank you. I share the concern. My dilemma is this. We are actually just talking about number 6 to approve what the grand jury reported and actually asking all the city to follow through. And there's a procedure protocol. You mentioned earlier, it requires 2 council members to put it on the agenda. I feel you automatically just say out loud in the public and forcing the board to put it on the agenda without any prior acknowledgement of the staff to look into it. Again, it's more the legality, the protocol that I have issue with. I do agree it is a safety issue to the city. I do agree the state is taking too long. I understand that, but I also believe everything should have a protocol, and this is one of those protocol. We are voting on just number 6. All of a sudden, we are changing the dynamic and forcing the board, we must put on the agenda without actually speaking to the city manager and has staff to look into it. That's where I'm very uneasy about. I'm not saying what you are proposing is bad. I'm more the legality of proposing. That's focused on what is on the agenda. That's vote on what is on the agenda. That is our residents have put her time so into this. I agree we got to pass this, but that's separate the two issues here.
I'm going to be the last voice on this one on the council dais, unless there's a member of the public that wants to comment on this. I appreciate and understand your comments, and when I say yours, I mean everybody here, the four of you. You raise good points. I do not think that it's an undue burden on our city staff or city manager. I think the burden will be owned by those members of the committee. And I can tell you, as the person who's been on LEAC for the longest, even before I was on council here, this particular issue is one of the issues that does take up quite a bit of time and is going to take up more time as we continue. And it does require a much more significant amount of study and follow-through than I think other issues. I think it does deserve its own independent ad hoc committee, and I think that partnership with the school district and your involvement in particular with the schools and getting their feedback, I think it's a great idea. I'm supportive of it. I appreciate the fact we need to take these things separately. I'm going to say I'm in favor of passing item 6 as recommended by staff, and with the substitution or addition that we agendize that matter for the next meeting, and we can hash this out further at that time. So, and then I would invite Ms. Whitman to either speak on this one or perhaps at the next meeting if she likes. It's your pleasure, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, everyone. I'm Patty Whitman. I just finished up my one-year term on the grand jury, and Crystal was right. I authored or co-authored this one as well as the next thing on the agenda about the recyclables. Just want to make a couple points of clarification. Already, the Sheriff's Department, OCTA, even some cities like Huntington Beach and Irvine have these resources and they want to share them with the city. So as far as like resources and budgetary considerations, I don't see any, and we outline that in the report. And I would encourage our residents to, this is our report, we wrote 6 of them, but I have a couple copies of the e-bike regulation. We interviewed OCTA, the Sheriff's Department, school districts, mayors, city councils, and everybody was in agreement that every city needs to have something in place. What we implement is not going to look anything like what San Clemente, them being a beachside community. We're a small inland community with no sidewalks and no streetlights. So it just has to be reflective. And I did hear feedback that some of the cities are waiting for the state to come down with ordinances. There have already been several that have gone on to Gavin Newsom's desk, and he vetoed them. So if we're going to wait around for the state, we're going to be behind the times. There are cities, like I mentioned, Huntington Beach, Ladera Ranch, Laguna Niguel, Irvine, who jumped on this like years ago. And then just on a final note, as far as community safety, we did interview, there's 2 big hospitals, children's hospitals in Orange County that have been keeping statistics on e-bikes, not just regular bicycles, but e-bikes, looking at injuries, looking at fatalities. I think it's only going to take something catastrophic. I hate to even think that. But with all the schools we've got around here and all the kids that are on these e-bikes, I think as a city, we need to come forward and just at least set some principles. The grand jury is not telling you what to do. It's basically, you should do something.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Okay,
Is
thank
there
you.
any further public comment on this matter? If not, I'm going to. Sure.
Please. My question is, again, this is on the agenda that we are voting on, number 6. Councilwoman Miles now throw a winch into the agenda, now is forcing, I feel, the dais to vote. In order for us to vote yes for number 6, consequently, we are voting yes to make sure we have this ad hoc committee happen and also be on agenda. To me, there are 2 separate issues. Is this legally allowed to all of a sudden throw something that was not agendized for this meeting to throw in here? Or can we just vote on number 6 for this agenda for number 6. Again, I'm not against having ad hoc committee for this important issue. I just don't want us as a dais throw in different related items and force the council to vote yes or no because of the consequence, the different related items.
I know this question is for you, but can I just, we're not voting on the committee being established now. We're just voting that it's going to become an agendized item at the next meeting where you and every member of the public and city staff can have an opportunity to say yay or nay to the idea of an ad hoc committee. We're not, so I think you're kind of arguing against your own point in a sense. Todd, do you have a different opinion on that?
Oh, no, well, as to requesting something be put on a future agenda, that's a specific allowance under the Brown Act, which you're allowed to do even if that item isn't on the agenda. You can always ask for an item to be put on a future agenda. So it's legal to do this. But if you don't want that as part of the motion, you can make a substitute motion and say, my substitute motion is just approve the grand jury report. If you want to have a separate motion on putting this on the agenda, that's fine, but make a substitute motion. If you get a second, then you have precedence. We vote on your motion. If it wins, then your motion is, we're done. If it loses, then it goes back to Crystal's motion. That's what you can do if you want to.
Thank you for that explanation. Maybe, Mayor, I misunderstood. I thought Councilwoman Miles throw in part of the motion to approve number 6 is also forcing the council vote yes to agenda for next month.
That is what her motion does, to put it on the next
That's
agenda.
my point.
Just to put it on the,
Just to
so
put it on the agenda.
you're opposed to even it being put on the agenda next month?
No, my proposal, well, not proposal, I just want to understand, is that the motion, and why are we doing 2 different items into one? I guess that's more my confusion.
So let me add, I believe, and I don't want to speak out of line, so correct me if I'm wrong, Councilwoman. She's proposing that it come back in the August agenda, and it is not presuming, or no, there's no presumption that it is established at that time. She's only talking about ideas that's still formulative at this point, and the council would deliberate on the August meeting. So she's, what Todd said, giving direction as part of the motion to approve 6, saying as a follow-up direction, I would also like this agendized for future consideration. There is no presumptive, I mean, somebody can vote to put it in the act on now and then vote against it in August. There is absolutely no commitment, any way, shape, or form, that this actually happens, with the exception of it's agendized.
Correct.
That would be the only requirement that happens,
Mayor?
right?
Sure, go ahead, sir.
I mean, why wouldn't we just take the normal course of action with this? Approve number 6, and then 2 members, if they want it on the agenda, get together, talk about it, and put it on the agenda for next month. Why are we going through all this? I don't understand.
That's exactly my point. That's exactly what I'm trying to deliver. I do apologize, not make myself clear, but that's exactly what I was trying to say. That's just only vote on what is agenda, and that our attorney and city has way to do other, proper things.
We hear your point. If there's a substitute motion, I'm willing to entertain that. If there's not, then there is a motion on the floor. I'm going to call the question. There's no further discussion after that.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
I would like to make a substitute motion.
thank you.
I would like to say we vote on number 6 as is,
Okay,
and then have council members, if they want to, can agendize this separately and apart and do it after the fact and have it on the next council meeting.
all right. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and take the substitute motion first. The substitute motion, as stated by Councilmember Pitts, is to handle the matter separately, only vote on what staff recommends in the answer to item 6, and completely bifurcate the issues, regardless whether they're related or not. And we have the second by Councilman Wu. Everybody please vote now. Okay, I'd love for this thing to work.
So that motion fails on a 3-2 vote,
Okay.
or 2-3 vote, I'm
So
sorry.
now we have the original motion, second, initiated by Councilwoman Miles, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Jones. Okay, please vote once we clear the screen.
Passes by a 4-1 vote with
Okay.
Councilman Pitts.
Perfect, thank you.
Are we done with the consent calendar? Praise God.
I hope so.
Okay. All right, thank you. New business, our first item, and I apologize for the delay for everybody in the audience that's here for this. Our first item of new business is to discuss a strategy regarding sober living homes. Steve, please give the staff report. And where did Justin go? Don't we need him for
No,
this?
no, just, this is.
I'm teasing.
He got lucky.
No, he's the young guy. I know.
So you recall that the issue of sober living has become intensified over the last month or two, several months, actually, I wouldn't say two. Anyway, the last council meeting, the council asked that we agendize something to come back at this meeting where we talked about the various options and the things that the city can do. To begin with, I want to reiterate, the city has not approved, has not reviewed, has not authorized, has not issued any permits for anything in the county, and the city does not have authority to do that for a sober living home of 6 beds or less. So for clarification, the city has not issued a building permit, a business license. They don't have to have it. They have not authorized any special use permit or CUP by state law and state and federal law and respective court decisions. We have been municipalities, not Villa Park, municipalities as a whole have been severely restricted regarding our ability to regulate and monitor sober living homes, providing they have 6 beds or less. They are considered by court rulings and interpretations and laws as I don't want to say disadvantaged, but a disabled population.
Yeah, the people who have addiction issues are deemed disabled under primarily the ADA.
So each of those residents as 6 beds or less have to be treated like any other resident, if you will. So that would include no restrictive zoning, and we are not permitted to regulate them, inspect them, we can't restrict them from being within distance of schools, et cetera. This is a seriously contentious issue. The loss of local control is the core issue is loss of local control. Because each city may say they want it, it's certain permissible or whatever, it's up to them. But there's no ability for cities to say that. Cities are in fact restricted from doing that. It has been litigated and is continuing to be litigated ad nauseum. As I think I've reported, my colleague from Newport told me they'd spent over $6 million in litigation expenses on this. Costa Mesa spent another $6 million. Other cities have contacted me and said, and not just me, but other Orange County cities, and said, would you guys be willing to help participate in our legal defense? So with that being in mind, just put it in perspective, $6 million is $1.5 million larger than our entire budget. All right? So kind of putting things in perspective, we don't have $6 million, whatever. And that's just out of our ballpark, so to speak, as my kids would tell me. Anyway, so what we've tried to do is pull together a strategy that addresses what we can do, keeping us away from harm's way and protecting our financial resources. I guess that's the best way to say it. So there's 6 different items that I've suggested here, and I would strongly encourage the council to pursue those for various reasons as outlined. There's online, there's an 8-page report that I have spent a large portion of time either talking to other cities, talking to ACCOs, the associations, the League of Cities, the lawyers, my colleagues. First item, at this point in time, it is my recommendation the city council should not adopt any ordinances, which other cities have done, but they are subject to litigation. I think we should continue to monitor current pending litigation and adopt applicable ordinances with the resolution of those with that respective litigation. The city will benefit by the precedent of any litigation that is resolved. So if those other cities are successful in that very same litigation, we benefit without fear or cost of litigation. All right, so, I mean, we sort of like, they blaze the trail for us. The other element is, and this is sort of a side issue, the state has required that we have to adopt a housing element. And that is required every 6 years, is it 6 years? 6 years. And we have a statutorily compliant housing element. We still have to take some zoning actions on it, but that's, that's less of a, well, it's a lot to do, but it's not the same. The State Department of Housing and Community Development has issued letters to those cities who have adopted ordinance and says they will retract certification of the housing element if those ordinances do not stay, if they do not get removed. So there's litigation going on that. So my perception is we do not need to take on HCD at this point when we're trying to get the housing element approved. What does that mean? If the housing element's not approved, we're subject to fines. We lose our ability to issue, we have potentially fines, significant fines, like $1,000 a day if they really want to go at it. And then they also have the ability to restrict our ability to issue building permits. So the city would no longer control that. The state would be able to issue building permits without us having any input. And then lastly, without a housing element, if a developer comes in, they have the builder's remedy, if you will. So the builder's remedy means basically that if we don't agree with something, if we don't have a certified housing element, basically if a builder comes in and gives us a plan, in 30 days it's approved. And we can't do anything about it. They can put in what they want to put in. And so I don't think we want to have that. That's a big risk. Villa Park, we're trying to protect the vision of what Villa Park is, and that is a major blow to our, we really lose more local control there than anything I can imagine. So that's the first recommendation, and I'm going to go through them individually because I think that you can have discussion, but it's easier to start it off this way. Secondly, I think that the city council members need to advocate both individually and collectively with the state legislature on legislation to help restore local regulatory control relative to sober living homes. I want to say there were 10 to 12 legislative items that were presented at the legislative session, the start of this legislative session. There are now, I believe, 2 left. One is by our own, one of our own state senators, I believe. No, Tom Umberg. I believe, or no,
it's
Valencia and Dixon are the 2
Davies.
that have proposed it. So anyway, I think that the city council should adopt a resolution supporting those pieces of legislation. I think the city council should take a proactive role in supporting proposed legislation and aggressively forward to members of the state legislature. And I would encourage the city council members to take every opportunity on various boards and interactions to advocate, because I think what's very important is that they hear from us. I think there was an article in the Register that came out about a month, not even a month ago, a couple weeks ago, which basically says the Sacramento legislature basically believes Orange County is crying wolf about sober living homes. And we're crying wolf because it's not really a problem elsewhere in the state. I don't believe that to be the case, and I talked to my colleagues all up and down Orange County, and they're vehemently opposed to it, the state's position. Anyway, I think we need to make our voice and speak up and have a louder voice, so I would encourage that. That's recommendation number 2. Third, there was originally a sober living task force that was established by the city of Mission Viejo. It became affiliated with the California Sober Living Recovery Task Force in January of 2023. It has now become so large and cumbersome that it exceeds the ability of Mission Viejo to actually handle it. They've spoken to ACCOC, which is Association of Orange County, Association of Cities of California Cities of Orange County, which basically would allow that be created as a 501c3 and operate independently with the the board, ACCOC being the board, governing board, just like the city council is a governing board of the foundation, Villa Park Community Services Foundation. Anyway, they are asking they've submitted a budget, and I've talked to the ACCOC, et cetera, and I've talked to Mission Viejo, and they have requested that cities participate to the tune of $7,500 in annual membership. Now, that's a lot of money for a small city, but at the same time, it allows us to have a voice much larger than our own if we can participate with a committee that has a regional task, a regional force. So I would recommend that the county, that the council authorize us to do that. This is going to be a long-term project. They meet fairly regularly, and there's very candidly, there are few elected officials that attend, but it's mostly staff members that are attending these things. It is city managers, it is city planners, it is, they have some law enforcement that attend, they have some lawyers that attend, but I would recommend that you designate me and then to report back at monthly city council meetings of the activities. So that's what I would recommend, that we formally join and become proactive members on that. Number 4, I think local enforcement efforts are really, really important to the extent we can. Sober living homes cannot violate laws. They can't violate code enforcement laws that the city has on, like, whatever the case, leaving trash cans out, or that's not exactly, but there, those kinds of things. So I would encourage, and we actually have a code enforcement officer that's here on a regular basis. We have the law enforcement that they go out and deal with any sort of crime. I would strongly, strongly encourage anybody who witnesses, suspects, or believes they see something that is a criminal activity, they should be contacting the sheriff immediately, 911. I believe the sheriff the captain would concur. Would be considered a priority call. If you see a crime in motion or something you believe to be a crime, don't wait and say, boy, look, I saw that last week and I didn't do anything about it. No, it should be reported and we can respond. Also, code enforcement violations. Code enforcement is a trickier issue. They have certain rights. A resident owner has the ability to respond to issues that we bring to their attention. And to the extent that they take any action on that and to remedy that, we start a process. So it's a much longer process. I keep bearing in mind, those of you who've been around Villa Park will remember there was a home on Center Avenue that had a burned out Cadillac in the front of it. And I was here for 3.5 years before that finally was resolved as a code enforcement issue, because he'd put a tarp over it one day, and then, so that would be considered, we'd have to start all over a process. So code enforcement is a trickier issue because we can't go do it. Eventually, we can take action, and if there's code enforcement, we can take action and then bill them or put a lien against their property for the cost of doing that. We have done that in various situations. But I would encourage them, the council, to encourage residents. We can, go out and talk to them. But I would ask that people aggressively report, because we keep a log of incidents. I know the sheriff does too, frequent flyers, if you will, of people they have to go see, and for all properties and residents. That's item number 4. Number 5, the city council, there have been various discussions about homeowners associations and restricted property covenants. There may in fact be some protections offered by those, but those are independent property owner agreements. Those are not city generated. Those are not governed by the city. We don't have jurisdiction over them. We don't sit on their boards or whatever. What I would caution is, though, that a homeowners association is a voluntary, at this point, it's a voluntary. So if a homeowner did not want to sign into it, it doesn't happen. So same with a property covenant. We have people all over the city who are doing developments who are building homes or whatever, who have to have an agreement or an easement agreement or whatever, and they want the city to come in and we can't do it. It's between property owners. So something along those lines. It may be possible that has some legal, some potential legal safeguards against types of things that can be occupying in those homes. But again, it cannot, if it's a voluntary type of thing at this point. These are not, it's voluntary now. If it's on there and somebody puts it in down the road and it's recorded to title, then that means that the next owner would have to live with that in their title. So I do not believe, and I think the city attorney will agree with me, city resources cannot be utilized to benefit individual property owners. All right, so we need to be very cautious of that. So my recommendation is the city not engage and reinforce the policy that city resources not be used in development of homeowner associations and or restricted property covenants, because that's a very problematic issue for the city, and I strongly oppose that and would recommend against that. Lastly, education is the tool here. A lot of people have a lot of questions. I cannot tell you the number of times I have repeated and had to have, I almost feel like I have a frequently asked questions list I have in my mind, and I answer this. And that is probably one of the biggest sets of questions I have. So my recommendation is that the city council establish a resident task force on sober living homes as an advisory committee to the city council. I would recommend that it consists of 10 members supported by city staff because it relates to city types of things. Each council member would appoint 2 Villa Park residents as task force members, with each serving like a 2-year term because, again, as one boss once told me, this is a marathon, not a sprint. And the task force would be a Brown Act, so it will be open to all public participation, and they shall meet a minimum of 5 times per year. So what you're doing is saying they're going to be proactive and they're going to meet. And then updates will be provided either in writing or verbally at least twice a year to the city council from the task force. So again, I want to reiterate, the city is very limited in our regulatory control. And I can tell you that we've got 7 or 8 or 9 and maybe more speakers that want to talk about this. And they all are going to object. I agree with you 100%. I would like to do a lot more than we can do, but I also understand that if I were to spend $1 million on this, I would basically have to cut the sheriff's contract in half. All right, that's the level of magnitude of what we're talking about here. So we don't have that. We spend just about $2 million on the sheriff's contract, and well worth it. I don't want to. I'm just going to give an order of perspective, and don't go back and tell your superiors, please, Captain, because we just approved your contract for 5 years. So anyway, we are very fortunate here that we have a proactive law enforcement. We are also a very conservative city financially, and we have needs that are coming. We have streets that I hear about need to be more streets that need to be paved, et cetera. We have a sewer system that was built in the 1960s and pre-60s, and we're hoping it lasts, et cetera. But I saw an estimate that was, 8 digits long about how if we had to repair all the stuff that had to be done. That's pretty scary, but, it is what it is. We'll deal with it and this council's been very careful and protective. I want to caution, though, any action we take prospectively will not eliminate the ability of a sober living home as it stands right now to open up. There is nothing we can do to stop the sober living home from opening. They have not done anything illegal at this point. All right, there is nothing done inappropriately or whatever, or even given us cause to say you've done something wrong. Now, we are engaged with at least that home with a code enforcement, but we are engaged, I want to say, with about 20 other homes in Villa Park with a very similar type issue of landscaping. So, I'm being very honest. Sober living homes are not the only ones sometimes. Now, we have historically had issues, or had 2 sober living homes. When I first got here, there were 2. I personally toured them, and I didn't know they were sober living homes. And as I drove by them early on, in fact, I drove by it trying to go up and like, where is it? And I expected to see something different. It wasn't what I expected. Anyway, they closed because they couldn't get clientele. And that's a different. These are not court referrals, and I want to keep everybody in the loop here. I have contacted the county health department. I've spent 34 years in the county. I know these people very well. These are not court referrals. These are not people who are working off probation. These are voluntary pays or insurance pays. So these are third-party payments. So these are people who are, for whatever reason, I don't know why, and I'm not sure it's good. There are terrible incidences of happenings at sober living homes all through the California, wherever they are. There are also a lot more than we think. Fountain Valley has 55. I think Costa Mesa is over 100 sober living homes. You hear about a certain number of them because they're really, really bad neighbors. You don't hear about every one of them. I talked to the city manager of Yorba Linda because he and I have a lot of commonalities in some of the things we do, and Todd being one of them. But anyway, he says they have several of them, and they don't know they're even, they don't hear anything about them. The one they hear about is a facility that is I don't want to say sober living home, but it's for people who are obese. That's a bigger problem, who go there for weight control type of things, and they've put corporate offices in apparently and made it sort of in a residential area. So everybody has a different take on sort of anything, but I talked to the Brea city manager, and he was telling me that they have them there, but if they're not hearing complaints about it, they're not doing anything about it. There's nothing there going on. So if there's nothing going on, it's like if you have a bad resident. His comment to me was they've had, because they're up by Cal State Fullerton, they've had student party houses that were worse problems than some of these sober living homes that they know they have. So, I mean, it's a case-by-case basis. And very fair, in Irvine, there was just a very horrific event where there was, I believe, a murder in a sober living home. So, I mean, not that, there's two ends of the spectrum. Some you don't hear about, some you're going to hear about. But the city, in either instance, has no control, even, like Irvine cannot close that one down. All right, I don't think they have any authority to close the one down, even though there was a heinous, tragic event that happened there. So I'm trying to do what the council asked, is address all those issues, come back in a strategy that allows us to be proactive, protecting the resources we have, at the same time trying to get a larger voice and citizen involvement in trying to address our problems. So I'll leave it there, and there's the 6 recommendations are laid out. And I would strongly encourage the council to take them seriously and deliberate them accordingly.
Thank you. Ordinarily, I would ask my colleagues for their comments, but with respect to them, I'm going to ask our audience to go first because you've been waiting so long and so diligently. I believe, Mr. Frackleton, you just filled out a card. Do you want to give it to Steve so that you're in the queue there, sir, in case some come after you? I saw you fill it out, and I want to make sure you got your voice heard.
Hi, Mayor.
I try. Well, thankfully, you're a lot taller than I am, so you got that going for you.
Okay, okay, you want me to just start calling them?
Please.
Scott, it looks like either Brophy, okay.
Thank you all for having us in. No offense to anything you said, but I don't think anybody in this city is ready to roll over and let this come into our community. What you didn't touch on was the residents from that sober house in Irvine. Continually, weekly overdoses, fights, needles. Pretty big deal. This gentleman the officer does a great job protecting our city. And he was busy doing all the ones that he listed. Let's add in another group of problems. We've got a elementary school right down the street from this place. Other side of Wanda, or excuse me, the other side of Wanda goes to Villa Park Elementary. Should we let these people come in without a fight, to let them walk past this scourge that we're not going to fight to keep them out? I can't do it. I don't think there's a lot of people here that will do it. And I hope that you guys don't want to do that either. This whole, the disability thing, drug users, alcoholics, it's a disease. That's a farce, okay? I dare you to talk to anybody that's fought cancer or is fighting cancer or has got through it to say they had a choice to do this, to get this disease. That's a disease, not ingesting drugs or alcohol. That's not, they made that choice, okay? I encourage everybody in this community that's here to unfold their arms, pull their heads out of the sand, and fight this thing and keep this money grab scum out of our community. Okay? Nothing good comes of this. How do we know that, how is it, with no regulations, and I'm not sure if this would be the officer's job or not, how do we know that there's 6 people in there? Shit, they're getting 20 grand or whatever, it doesn't matter the money. They're obviously opening this for profit, okay? How do we know? We don't have any regulations, we don't have almost the laws other than them shooting each other or beating each other up. He's got no jurisdiction on this place. How do we know there's 6? How do we know there's not 15? I don't know. I'm not sure you can answer that. Until there's a problem, what comes of this? Okay? Let's do our best. Fight this thing to the end. There's many cities that are fighting this. I don't want to be a 55 Fountain Valley sober living house community. What we haven't also talked about, and I think, I don't want to speak for somebody that might be coming up here, but our property values are going down, will go down, guaranteed, with this problem. I'll guarantee you that Irvine house, their properties decreased. Couldn't tell you how much, but they decreased, okay? I just got word that somebody that lives within a close proximity is now moving because of this. This is their dream home. I don't want to deal with this crap. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Next up.
Sanjay Tani?
Yeah, Sanjay Katani. I live on Cedar Hill Circle. To the council, men and women, I want to thank you for serving our community and also keeping us safe for all of you guys here. Thank you very much. It's a thankless job, and you guys do a very good job. Thank you. I'd like to give you a hand of applause. Thank you.
Thank you.
You made a great point about regulations and everything, but I'd like to roll back on what brought me to Villa Park. I've been living in Southern California since 1971, and the longest I've lived in any city is Villa Park, 22 years. And I'm very proud of being here, and I've now, not now, but I have actually done a lot of homework before I moved to Villa Park to make this a home for my kids to grow up in. We looked into the safety of the city. We looked into the educationals, the schools. My kids were all in private schools. I wanted them to go to public schools because I went to public schools. So I found good surroundings within the city, and it seems like we are losing it now. Property values, yes, it is going to diminish. Not only that, we are also going to lose good residents. I'm losing a very good neighbor of ours. She just put up her home right across from the sober living home. And they've had enough. That home is the jinx. You guys all know about that home. We had issues over there for so many years. I used to turn into that street, and it used to be a pile of crap there. So it's not just a home, it is the actual place in itself and how we could regulate this. We got to fight it to the end. We cannot just accept that. I know our hands are tied, but we have to be able to do something. Your suggestions are here. I don't know if they came just from your research or were these suggested and also shared with the council. Are you seeing these for the first time? Have you had the time to brainstorm this among yourselves, or we don't know? And how can you help? You can't do it. You're not able to do anything. You're suggesting a committee membership of $7,500 for an organization to associate ourselves with the city, but you are indirectly getting involved. So it's kind of a catch-22 here. How are you guys going to help us? How can you advocate us to do the right for our city? As individuals, we can't do anything. As good neighbors that are concerned, I'm sure that nobody came from the other side of Catella over here, or Santiago, or anybody. We're just pretty much in that pocket over there by Villa Park Elementary School. And that is also very much concerned. Kids walk up and down that street before, to school, and away from school. Some ride bikes. We don't know what's going to happen. My wife was just sitting there, and she was looking up on the internet, and yes, there's a sober house in Irvine. Had a confrontation. some 18-year-old kid got and lost his life for whatever that was. We got to put a stop to this. What can we do? We need some people to give us some advice. What are the concerns? What are the other cities facing as far as violences? Burglaries, probably. You know, when you're desperate to get a drug or something, and I'm sure you're going to go knock on your neighbors and see who's not home. And these guys are living there. They can monitor everybody coming and going. It's a concern. So I'd like to get your feedbacks, too. What do you have to face? What have you faced in other cities?
Well, let's go ahead and just address your questions.
So
to the council.
you know,
If they
it's very
choose to-
generalized right now.
Sir, hang on.
Yes.
Okay, we're not going to direct your questions towards staff. Direct your questions towards the council.
I'd like to get their feedback.
Right. If we, as the council, feel it's appropriate, then we'll ask them, just for the point of order. And also, I don't want you to run out of time because they're going to eat into your time. So, okay?
How much time have I left?
You got 44 seconds.
I appreciate your time, and I appreciate everybody that's here and all the concerned neighbors. I'm very proud to be a Villa Park resident, and I'd like to continue doing so. I will not put my home for sale, but I will fight to the end. Thank you very much.
Appreciate you and appreciate your comments.
Chris Robinson?
Okay.
Say more. I think you're 5 minutes.
Mostly,
Could you just up the microphones and so we can hear you on the public watch? It should be a bright green light.
green rain, it's on.
Yeah.
I just was ignorant about this completely. I didn't know if there were any others in the city that we had, and the same concerns. My children have grown and left, but I've lived here since I was about 7. My parents had a house here, and then I was able to move back. And yeah, it's the first time I've ever heard of anything like this happening in the city. So I was very concerned about what the repercussions would be, what we could do, and like those two gentlemen before me, I feel the same exact way. That's why I came. So you can have the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for your comments. Next.
Charles Krieger?
I've owned my home since 1977 in Villa Park. And through these years, I've watched a steady degradation of Villa Park quality of life. I've watched things happen that increase traffic. I've watched the traffic change to trucks going through the city, carrying rock and whatever to landfill a quarry. I've watched other things happen that have not been positive for the life in Villa Park. And now we're faced with this sober home, which probably is going to result in my leaving Villa Park. I don't want to put up with this. I think there's a lot of people here that say the same thing. They don't want to put up with it either. Now, the one thing that I have heard, now it's hearsay at this point, but I've heard that in North Tustin, the people there were able to reject a sober home and get it gone. I'd like for everybody to find out how that happened and what they did to get it, should we say, suspended from operation, or however they got rid of it. I hope we can find out how they did it, and maybe we can do the same thing. I'm hopeful for Villa Park in the future, but when I see a steady degradation of what I thought was Villa Park when I moved into it in 1977, it bothers me. Now, I've had my home leased out a number of times, and I tried very carefully to select families. I never wanted to lease it to the college students or 6 men that wanted to live in the house or whatever.
I selected very carefully that I was trying to maintain the neighborhood. And I am next door neighbor to Chris. I think he could also say that the tenants that I had there were decent, good people. So I tried, and I hope everybody else here will try to improve the quality of Villa Park, not let it continue this steady slide towards lesser quality of life. With that, I yield.
Thank you for your comments, sir, and your time. Next.
Lawrence Talibi.
I think we might continue to hear a lot of the doom and gloom, and that is for good reason. And Steve, I appreciate personally just you taking the effort and time to put something together to get the ball rolling better than we did last time. I think it's pretty clear this is probably going to happen. And if it doesn't, great. I'm definitely on the war wagon with Scott. But with that being said, it would be very helpful, I think, for many of us to know who do we contact, right? So we must have to initiate some kind of effort at state, potentially even federal level. I personally, as well as I think a couple of the other folks that are in here have reached out to some of the suggestions that we've received via email, via phone, via letter, via Twitter, X, whatever it's called. I'm not hip with that. It's what my wife does. But, and I haven't personally gotten a response, but if there's a recommendation from the council or something that can be circulated in writing for who we can initiate a conversation with or sharing those concerns and creating this voice that I think some folks that are unnamed at the Sacramento level think that we're just crying wolf over here need to hear. I think it would be great if we could do that and see if there's something of additional value we can bring as residents to the table to also assist the council in helping us. So I know the initial reaction, and I too have to fight it just because I care, is like, the council. But if there's a suggestion on behalf of the council on what we can also do, I think a task force is more of a response, but it's potentially something that can lead to marathon, not sprinting. Perhaps that's decent there, but to maybe try to get a definition change or revision, or we can get the Ninth Circus to make better choices at some point. Whatever it takes, I'm sure there are many people in this room and that are not in this room or listening to this video recording or stream that would take the time to write or call whoever they need to write or call. So, that being said, that's all I got.
Thank you, sir, for your comments and your time.
Okay, and I apologize. I'm going to mispronounce your name. Miss Tang? Okay, why don't we do that? Okay, thank you. Well, okay, I'm sorry. She's being very kind. She's being very kind.
Using the easy way.
Thank you.
So my name is, I'll just go by Beam Tang, and like Sanjay say, I'm one of the mothers of that is impacted. So I'm a mother of 3, and I had 2 children that attended Villa Park Elementary School, and they do walk past the facilities that is in question to and from school regularly. So thank you for the information, and I'm a little bit disappointed that there is no restriction that we can put on, just the location and proximity to the school, because I totally understand the need for compassion and support for those struggling with addiction. It's just, I wish it wasn't done at the expense of like my kids, safety. So I just feel, as guardians, as parents, I just want to provide an environment that's free of unnecessary risks and disturbances as much as possible. And I'm willing to, do whatever is recommended by the city council or whatever the task force that recommends to pursue that. And then secondly, I don't know if you guys also looked around for more information regarding what it would look like to have a sober living facility in your community. So I did look, and I did find some just reviews from residents of other sober living facility, and people who have worked there, and from information from the OC Register even. And so I'm just going to read some of it just to enlighten you guys, just, sharing knowledge. So there was one comment by Ethan S., username Ethan S. He says, they're in the business for making money. That is all they care about and don't give a crap about clients or the environment as long as they're collecting the fees. They try to spin this as a sober living so they can receive funding and tax breaks. This is basically a place where they rent rooms to anyone who can pay, but just try to stay clean and don't bring it to the environment. You can smell like crap, be on whatever medication, be schizophrenic, mentally disturbed, severely depressed, or whatever. As long as you pay, you can stay. This place should be investigated and shut down. I am glad I got out of there when I did a few months back. So this was a comment from a resident. Another username, Milky Lock, I don't know, but they stated, sober homes, while good in theory, are often scams to take advantage of people's available insurance cash. The home will bring people in, sometimes from out of state, to let them stay in the homes until they run out of insurance, then kick them up to the curb. They are the reason why OC has an increase in homeless population. They bring in a bunch of recovering addicts, which in itself isn't a problem. However, statistically, they are overwhelmingly likely to relapse. A lot of them have nowhere else to go once they relapse, so they just end up being homeless around there. I work for one of these homes, and they're pretty much the main contributor to why you have so many drug addict homeless from other states flooding OC in recent years. Another user, going by the name of Soup of the Day 5, says, I'm all for helping people get clean, but since they have started adding all these sober living homes around the area, the crime has gone up like crazy. Another user, called Ultra Dip, state, if sober living home were run properly, they would be good. Unfortunately, they're run so that the customer patients are only housed as long as insurance is willing to pay, and then kicks them out. Another user, Wally Jade, states, mostly bad, because most of them are money-grabbing scams. They prey on needy people or those court-ordered to attend and accept the government's money for their services. Then, when the money runs out, these people are literally out on the street. And then there's a OC Register article that did a great 4-part series, and they also, part 1 kind of summarized all the issues that the community would see, and some of the things they listed was concern for the property value due to proximity to sober living homes, varying standards for treatment and supervision of the people living there, billing practices that exploits insurance reimbursement, profit-driven motives influencing decision and practices, and inadequate oversight and enforcements of rule and regulations. So these are just voices that I've heard from prior residents, worker communities that point to, just highlighting some of the potential negative impact of the community and residents. And so my third point is I feel like there has been just a lack of information about the ushering in of this facility.
Sorry.
No worries.
It's the most annoying timer ever, but it does its job. You're out of time, but if you'd wrap up, I'll give you a few seconds.
Yes. So I just feel like there has been information lacking from the beginning. I kind of heard about this by word of mouth, and I think the people who are impacted the most deserve at least very minimally the information being readily available. So I'm hoping that's to change, and I'm hoping that you would just steward, prioritize our community's children and safety, and steward this decision surrounding
We
this well.
greatly appreciate it. We understand it. we hear your voice and we share your concerns, and we'll talk more about that in our own discussions. But thank you very, very much.
Time.
Sincerely.
Jan Keeley. Jan Keeley.
Hello, my name is Jan Keeley. I'm a new member of this community. I was, first of all, if I'm going to start speaking too fast, my perfect English will go south because you all speak with accent. So let me know. So I'm a long-time former Irvine resident for over 40 years. And I started looking for a house about 5 years ago, and I finally selected Villa Park as my next city, and I am not planning on moving again. Therefore, Scott, I believe, I'll help you to fight whatever it will take to keep this city from coming to bad things. Because I lived in Irvine, I'm very aware what happened. I mean, I still have friends, and I talk to them on a regular basis. And trust me, you don't want that to happen here. And because Villa Park or municipalities have no control over it, that's just baloney. I mean, we are the people, we pay the taxes, we should be able to call what's going on in our cities. Now, I commend you for putting these 6 points, which is awesome, okay? So I want to talk particularly item 1 and item 6. I don't know exactly what are the actual legislation, and we're waiting for them to come to conclusion. My question is, what are those legislation, and how long we're going to wait for us to do anything about it, which I would like to get more information as a citizen. And item 6, I'm all for creating this committee, and I wish I can be on it, please. But I would like to ask you to add a little bit more meat to it, what you want out of us or out of this committee, and what is the end goal. And basically, you want the report, you want the anecdotals from different cities. What do we want out of this committee? We're going to meet 5 times a year, which is fine. I suggest we should meet much more than that. And what do you want? You want a report? You want community action? What do you want out of it? But I think it's a very good thing to do to have that, because citizen needs to get involved. And why did I select this city is this. I lived in Irvine for over 40 years. I knew my neighbor to the right and neighbor across the street, and I knew nobody else because everybody walks like that. There is no community there, okay? I mean, I still have friends. The first day I moved into this neighborhood, the next morning, my door rang, and the lady stand with the box of pastry and said, "I'm your neighbor to the right. My name is Karen. Welcome to the neighborhood." And I pinched myself. Small town USA still exists, and Villa Park is perfect example of it, and we don't want to give it up. So I'll do whatever I can, because I'm not planning on moving. I just spent a lot of money remodeling my place, front and backyard. I'm not moving ever again. So what all of you please help me to help the city council and whatever we can do to basically put some control of it. I'm not saying that not in my backyard, because we have to have compassion, but if we have no control over it, that's just baloney. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time, sir, and your comments.
Robert Frackleton.
Robert Frackleton. I grew up on Beckley Circle, walked every morning to your neighbor's house, the Swopes, and then together we walked Lincoln to Villa Park Elementary. So I know what we're talking about, and I'm feeling very invested in this. Recently, the home that I actually bought for my family, we have an abandoned house on our street. It's been abandoned for about 5 or 6 years now, and became a vector issue with the pool, was a mosquito fest, and thanks with lots of diligent work with the city, with the county, the vector control, we finally got it mitigated. But it takes time. It takes a lot of time. So having gone through it, I just want to offer, if the council ends up doing number 6, I would like to serve in that task force and help these folks get this issue resolved. So That's it.
Thank you for your time and your comments, sir, and
Patty
your
Whitney.
offer. That's it? Oh, Patty? Okay.
It's me again.
Well,
I'm
glad
like
to
a
have you. Glad to
boomerang.
hear your voice.
Although I didn't sit on the 2022 to 23 grand jury, that grand jury actually did a very extensive report on sober living homes. And I think it would behoove the city council, everybody here, the community, to read that report, because a lot of the things that I'm hearing tonight, they've already been looked into by the grand jury, and the grand jury made recommendations to every city in Orange County, Villa Park being one of them, who was required to respond. So if you're looking for kind of a jumping off point to see what's already been done, and so you're armed with the facts before you go into a committee and decide what your end goal is going to be or what we want to accomplish, it outlines ordinances at the county level, AB bills at the state level, and then also local cities. So I think there's a wealth of information in there, and I would behoove everybody to go see it. You can get it online, orangecountygrandjury.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. Appreciate it. That's it.
That's the,
All right. Colleagues, I'm going to start with Councilwoman Miles. You had some comments, and we're going to try to address some of the individual questions raised that we can at this point in time, but we'll give you the floor first, and then we'll move around.
I want to say thank you to everybody who showed up. I appreciate everyone coming and speaking. I agree 100% with every single one of you. A couple things. I'm going to do this quick. Somebody had asked what legislation. Assemblywoman Davies, it's AB 2081. That has not been vetoed yet. And then with Valencia, AB 2574. Those are the only two out of about 10 to 12 that actually have still made it through any kind of public safety committees up in Sacramento. Lori Davies, AB 2081. And this is kind of where I go. So she looks at this from a different perspective and a different angle. And that's when we spoke last time. And I wanted to convey that I think we need to think outside the box and we need to be creative. And we as a city and as a community need to recognize that, locally we have no control. You're 100% right. And so how can we make the system work for us? So I appreciate staff's time on all of this. I'm going to come up with 2 suggestions. I know that our city manager and the staff are 100% dedicated to making sure that Villa Park stays safe, that Villa Park stays small, that Villa Park stays that community, that small bedroom hidden jewel. So I appreciate all that was said here and all the suggestions. However, respectfully, I have to say I really think we could do more. Agree to disagree. Would like to mention for number 3, the CASLAR. Unfortunately, I don't know when I sit on the ACCOC Board of Directors. We don't know when that's going to be ready because it's up to the City of Mission Viejo to establish the 501c3, and that paperwork has not been completed yet. For anyone who's ever tried to establish that, it could take anywhere from 6 months to a year. So although that is a great suggestion, that may not start until summer next year. So that's one of the issues. Also, in recognizing that both my colleagues on the end of the dais here are concerned about our city manager's time. I am a board member for ACCOC. We are now involved once the 501c3 gets established. So if it would help, I am happy to be the representative since I'll be there anyways. Just a side note, you guys can take it or leave that. But when I say we need to think outside the box, this is what I'm talking about. So, City Attorney, I'm going to need your help on this. Fair Housing Act. So, Fair Housing Act applies to most housing that were designed and constructed after March 13th of 1991. This I got from La Google. These buildings must meet specific design requirements to ensure that public and common use spaces and facilities, as well as the interior of dwelling units, are accessible to people with disabilities. Now, we've already established that this is a protected class under the American Disabilities Act. So the Fair Housing Act also prohibits discrimination based on fear, speculation, stereotypes about people with disabilities. If the house in question on the corner was built before 1991, does it still qualify for protection under the Fair Housing Act?
So the Fair Housing Act it has sort of different components. It has a use component and it has a, let's say, physical modification component. So as far as physical modifications, you don't have to make physical modifications, but when you do, they have to conform to a certain set of requirements, right?
Right.
Right? So that's more an ADA world than Fair Housing
Right.
Act? Thank you.
Right. No,
Okay.
I'm saying you're leading right into my thing. So,
Okay.
so if the house in question, which, why can't we as a city say we are concerned about any potential occupants of that home, and we are requesting the state help us make sure that that home is compliant, both in ADA, fair housing, housing and community development, along with the California Department of Health Care, as it says, provides some level of regulation as long as they offer services like job training and drug testing. So why can't we make the system work for us? Instead of us, we can't go knock on their door, but we can say, hey, state, this is your rule, and we want you to go to that house because I guarantee you they don't comply, and I guarantee you they're not going to comply. And this may be, one of the ways in which we can say you're not compliant, and the state's going to come and be the owner of their own policies.
Yeah, so it depends on the nature of the use in the facility, right? So we use sober living homes as sort of a prophylactic, all-encompassing, what does that mean, right? There's group homes, which have specific medical, family, daycare, healthcare type of uses, which are specifically regulated by the state. And that's the State Department of Health, often as it operates through the county. In those types of situations, one of the things we recommend is absolutely to use their facilities to make sure, their resources to make sure they're complying with all of these requirements that such facilities are required to comply with, right? So that's safety, appropriate regulation, appropriate, all the things you're talking about. A subset of these types of homes, though, are the pure sober living homes, which fall outside that ambit of state regulation, and there is no overarching state healthcare agency that governs them, really, because they're for addicts, for a place to attempt to come clean and sober, and there's usually not medical care professionals on site, so it's not regulated by the state. So in some of these instances, what you're saying, absolutely, we should do that, use all those resources. In other instances, those resources don't exist for certain types of facilities. And so to say to the state, oh, you need to check this house to make sure it complies with the Fair Housing Act, unless it's within their very small subset of jurisdiction, nobody at the state's going to answer that call.
Yeah, but at least if we try, then at least we're trying, and we're not just going, oh, well, sorry. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm looking for is at least getting out there so we can reestablish trust with our residents and confidence with our residents and say, okay, this might work. I mean, I don't accept that we just kind of go, well, sorry, it doesn't work this way. One last suggestion, and this is kind of whatever happened to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? How is having a sober living home that will potentially drop home values not a violation of our constitutional right in the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness?
So that's a philosophical question, I suppose. I mean, my job here, I don't get to give my personal opinions, I give legal opinions, right? And that property owner has property rights too. Where is the balance between that person's property rights and a neighbor's, right? So are you going to let somebody say, you can't have cats at your house because that infringes on my liberty because I hate cats? And I have 2 cats, so I agree with that, actually. So where is that line? Where that line is set is through legal policy. And the courts and the federal and state government have said, Well, if there's 6 people or less, we're going to say that those people's rights, they have a right to live in a residential community like anybody else, and just because they have a disability, you, city, can't discriminate against them. That has been the law that has been created. So the answer to that is, yeah, okay, we could sue, we could lose millions of dollars like Costa Mesa, Newport Beach, great, fight the good fight. It accomplishes nothing, right? This is a political issue, so it needs to be resolved politically at the end of the day.
I agree with you, and I'm not suggesting that we sue because I would not want to put our city in that. But there's got to be several steps before that litigation point. Like I said, going around using their policies and their regulations and using the system to help us say, hey, state, why don't you go check on these people? Not that way, but you know what I mean. Something so that we can say, we want to make sure that the health and well-being of these individuals in this home is actually cared for.
So they are not required to register with the state as sober living homes. So.
I know, but
what we do, and one of the recommended suggestions is, okay, we're watching you, right? Me, city attorney, sheriff's department, Bill Tarrant, code enforcement, and if there's anything going on and the long arm of the law is long for a reason, we're going to make sure you comply with those. So really, in the end, because the state has abdicated its authority over these types of facilities, in the end, it comes down to us as far as a code enforcement perspective, as to sober living home.
May I ask a question? Sure. So I understand her argument, and I understand the argument that if it's 6 and under, there's no oversight, frankly, from the state. But if the concern for the people, the patients, the people, the individuals, the drug addicts, call them what you want, depends on the conversation, that are living there, is out of concern for them. And we as the city know that that house has not been renovated to meet the needs. You said they don't have to comply, so they don't have to modify the house to comply with ADA standards, despite the fact that, frankly, for lack of a better word, they're hiding behind that.
Hiding behind it. Well, so if there are...
My words.
Yeah, no, I understand. No, I'm just trying to formulate the answer. If there is something in, let's take a broad example, the Uniform Building Code or the Uniform Code of the Abatement of Dangerous Buildings, which are all of these building codes that are national models, which are modified by the state and then adopted by the city with specific things because we're in a fire area, so we have all these different rules. If any of those are not being complied with, that is a health and safety issue of the physical environment over which the city has jurisdiction, right? And we can enforce those. Somebody asks, well, how do you know? You get an abatement warrant. You get warrants all the time to see if something is not being complied with in the physical environment or is unsafe structurally. So that would be an option in the city if we had just cause to think there was some type of violation in that regard.
So it would basically take a patient from that facility to make a complaint that some aspect of that facility is unsafe to trigger that. We, as the city, independently
when
couldn't
the
do
most recent modifications were made, they were all made with building permit and with building permits from the city and received notice of occupancy from the city.
I don't doubt that they were.
So I mean,
but
I'm
looking at hallway dimensions, looking at doorway widths, I'm looking at ramps, I'm looking at every single thing that the super litigious attorney out there that goes after ADA accessibility issues, and we've seen them. Some are unscrupulous, some are not. Some are doing it for legitimate good reasons. Might potentially look at. So I'm looking at. I have no doubt that whatever changes they've made are permitted, were done the right way. They wouldn't invest in that house, but have they met all of the needs, all of the requirements? And that's the question that I think we're looking into here. And can we ask, since we, the city, can't go in there and do that, can we ask the state to do that? And your answer is no, because it doesn't fall under the narrow umbrella of above 6.
Right. Well, the state has passed specific laws under the Health and Safety Code, which basically says cities do not have any regular control. The state regulates us to the medical issues and stuff like that, and operational components.
Sure.
So if it is a residential care facility for the elderly, RCFE, then yeah, the state would jump in. There's a phone number you call and you say, hey, we got an issue here. You look at it up on the website and boom. It depends what type of house it is.
But how can it be, how can a sober living home be protected class under ADA?
It's the people that are the protected. The people
Okay,
have
fine.
the
The
disability.
people in the home are protected under American Disability Act.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's no way to follow up and make sure that those individuals are actually being treated appropriately under the laws of ADA. That's what I'm saying is there's got to be some way, like a back door, to say, hey, state, you've got 6 people here. They're all qualified as a protected class. We'd like you to make sure that they are being treated as such.
Because they're supposed to be treated in a facility that complies with ADA standards.
Right, but ADA, okay, well, you have the ADA in our context applying to the.
It could be
to the
sensory,
humans,
it
but-
could be mobile.
Yeah, but if it's, okay, so what is an ADA? So if we remodel City Hall, we have to make sure the doors are a certain width, we have to have curb ramps, we do, because this is called a place of, it's a public facility. Then you have places of public accommodation. So you go to Rockwell's, they got to fit because they have people come in, so they have to comply with those certain things. Those types of rules, I do not believe fall over sober living homes because we have to treat them like residential. So it would be like me making you put in a curb ramp at your house. I can't do that.
Right, but if I
If
was,
you want to.
but let's say that let's say my house, okay, and I am a legit service provider of sober living home, right? And I've said, I am legit, here's my licensing, I didn't need it, here's this, I didn't need it, but I am legit and I truly care for my people, okay, that are there, my 6 individuals. And then I am obligated then, not my home, because you have to treat it as a resident, but I'm obligated to make sure that this individual here, sorry, you're drug
That's fine.
today, is offered the quality of care compliant with ADA standards. So,
They're a constituent too.
I think the point being is the state has to enforce. We
right.
can
Right.
request them.
Well,
and
that's all
I can
I'm
tell you
asking
for a
for.
fact.
They're just
so-
going to say, go pound sand.
Well, but
They are
that's what
going
I'm
to-
asking, is
No.
can we put something
The
in play?
administrator for the State Fair Housing Act is the Housing and Community Development Department in the state. And they are not responsive to local issues regarding this. I'll be very candid, I've talked to other cities who have done that. I'm certainly happy to call them up and say that, but it will not. Now, furthermore, they won't close them, they'll give them a notice that they have to make a remedy.
Yeah,
That's all it will do, and they make a remedy.
Makes it expensive.
Well,
is it really expensive?
they do what they do. Or if they even say you have to, it will not change the fact that it opens up or whatever, if they in fact even come out. So my talking to the city managers I've talked to have not yet had a single inspection from state when reported.
Have
So
they?
They have reported to HCD, they've reported to the state health department, they've reported to the state attorney general, they've reported to.
Saying
also-
that they are concerned about the health and well-being of those individuals in that home.
Yes. Yes. I'm just saying experiences. Now, does that mean it's the right thing the state's done? I totally disagree. The
No,
state
of
should be
course-
out doing
of
it,
course
but they're not doing it. That's what I'm just saying.
And
They're
just
not.
so everybody knows, we're talking legal requirements that we're not,
Right.
don't take like we like any of this.
Yeah, no, I'm not supporting it. I'm not defending this. I think in reality, the frustration is this is, while I do respect, it's not as far outside the box as you might think. This has been an issue going on for years. The litigation on $6 million, they contested in Costa Mesa, I believe.
Newport started it.
Newport started they have to prove their ADA, that they prove they're addicts. They don't have to. That's a court decision said no, they don't have to prove that they're disabled or
Right.
whatever. So I mean, this is combated at every turn. The problem that the other city managers have told me is you eventually can do this. There is now an association of sober living homes who are suing on behalf of individual property owners who are doing this. So there's a lot of, it's a business, and businesses are going to protect themselves. My caution, and we'll do whatever the council wants, I'm very happy to go forward with it. My caution is, I would hope that we don't open our checkbook
No, of
to
course
some
not.
litigious person who has come direction
I don't
the
think
opposite.
either one of the suggestions that Councilwoman Miles is asking for that financial fight.
Right.
But it's a question, it's a letter. You are telling us that road has already gone down and that road failed.
We happily do
Right.
it again. I'll be happy to do that.
We don't want to cause something that's going to cause litigation. I don't think that would, candidly.
No, I don't think so either, but I'm just
But-
saying, I just
Yeah.
think I think we need to be conscious of, with
Right.
every action, there's a reaction.
Right, sure, of course.
And then the other thing too, and going back to the Caslar, it won't be until the fall or spring. But to be a leader, you have to step forward and offer up a financial investment. And that's
And
what I'm
I'm not
suggesting.
opposed.
Huh?
I'm not opposed to the
That's what I'm
financial
suggesting.
obligation.
We go ahead and make that investment as a leader in the city and get a leadership position in the committee
Absolutely.
because we've anteed up our money up front. That's my suggestion. I recognize that committee, it exists already, but to be the nonprofit,
Right.
it won't take action as a nonprofit for 6-9 months. But they're already meeting right now. There's a survey that you'll see in the feeder this week where they're asking for public input about these types of things. So very candidly, it's not a recognition that it's to try and be a voice of a leader and stepping up and say, look, we're making the financial commitment. I'd much rather put $7,500 into Caslar than a 6-digit number to a lawyer, all due respect, that to
I'm
say,
a nice lawyer.
go fight something that we already know has failed or is going to lead down. And that's what I'm saying is let's make a step that shows that we are committed to doing something. That was my recommendation.
I totally agree with that. I just wanted to make sure people understood that this is not something that if we pay $7,500, it's going to happen next week. And for those, CASLAR is California Sober Living and Recovery Task Force. That's what CASLAR looks. So you can look it up, CASLAR.
That was I just wanted to clarify that I totally agree with that.
I want to get my other colleagues' comments, but let me just recap. I do have what would appear to be 3 pending questions for perhaps the city attorney, staff, or the council. One is a North Tustin zoning issue. I'll let you get to that. I kind of overheard you guys.
That was by my house.
I'm good at reading lips, especially on YouTube. We have who to contact. We will get to that, who you need to contact. And then restriction, distance to school. Greatly appreciate that. Unfortunately, I think legally that's already been argued and failed, but nonetheless, we'll let our city attorney chime in on that. But colleagues, do you have questions, comments on the sober living home matter?
To hear those answers?
You would like to hear those answers first. Okay, we're going to defer to those answers. North Tustin zoning, please.
The North Tustin zoning was, I believe, a senior living home.
There was some property owned by the Catholic Church if you're going down Newport, right by that Manicero Farms on the corner of 17th and Newport, right up there. And they fought about that for about 5 or 6 years because it was going to be a second-story senior living home. And they basically, it got resolved, or it's now all single-story. It's really a retirement home for priests and nuns.
It had to do with the zoning and a CUP
Yeah,
that was
a
issued.
zoning issue.
So it was a zoning issue. It was not specifically.
Not sober living home.
Not specifically
Okay.
sober living.
Moving on, then who to contact. I'm going to take a shot at that. I'm going to ask my colleagues to chime in if they feel differently and/or staff. You need to contact your local state representatives, and I would offer even your federal representatives. And if they won't, in writing, say, I do not support sober living homes, and I will not, and I won't, and I will support legislation removing them from the residential community. Do not vote for them, and make it very blunt, black and white in writing, something to that effect. Pass a petition, and this isn't specific to D or R, but the only way you're going to affect change is to frankly boot their butts out of Sacramento. Sacramento right now is poisoned, for lack of a better word. It's controlled by one party, and then the folks on the other side aren't doing a great job. So it takes both sides to get together to help you, for us to regain control as a municipality. There are good people on the right, there are good people on the left, but right now, Sacramento is not working for us, in my humble personal opinion. Colleagues.
So your third question as far as distance requirements between homes, I think that was a question you had?
Schools.
Oh, and schools,
Well,
yeah.
and homes.
And homes, yeah. So the county actually adopted ordinance. I think it was 600 feet. Costa Mesa's been trying that, Newport Beach. Initially, they were deemed illegal. Then one Judge Carney said they were okay. Then it went up on appeal, and it's all sort of in flux as far as distance requirements, whether they're permissible or not permissible. And that comes from a chain of case law where a city put distance requirements between liquor stores because they didn't want to ghettoize certain communities, so they made them be, certain distances apart. So people try to use that as a justification. If you're completely destroying the residential community and you're putting all these homes in which aren't really residential communities, aren't you destroying the residential community you're saying these people need to be in, right? That's the theory. But so some entities have done those, but because they're currently being legally tested in the courts, I wouldn't say you do it until you figure out until the court says what the answer is on that one.
Thank you.
So.
And colleagues, if you wanted to chime in on who to specifically contact, or second, or say, hey, I'm full of it, and we're doing a great job in Sacramento, then please, I'm all here for that.
I can add to who to contact. So one of the reasons why it's important to contact your state legislators, or specifically the bill that a state legislator, because when that goes to committee and then goes to floor, they get a packet, and at the back of the packet, it will tell you and list how many people called for support or for opposition. So for instance, with Assemblywoman Davies, AB 2081, this is requiring that licensed recovery home operators disclose to people seeking care that they can check the California Department of Health Care Services to confirm a facility's compliance with state licensing laws. So what you would do is you would contact Assemblywoman Davies' office, and you would say, I would like to put my name as support on this, and tell 10 friends who tell 10 friends who tell 10 friends. And then when that does go to committee, your names are listed there, which is really nice to see. And then AB 2574 by Valencia, this would expand reporting requirements to enhance the California Department of Health Care oversight of sober living homes that are operating as an integral part of a licensed treatment facility elsewhere, so sort of like a satellite. So some of these some of these facilities are coming online as these satellites. So again, that's Valencia and AB 2574. The other one you can call, it's Kevin McCarty, and it's not McCarthy, but McCarty. He is the Public Safety Committee Chair up in Sacramento. He is the chairman for the Public Safety Committee, and you can call his office and tell him that you want these supported, and tell your friends. So those are a couple suggestions. 2081, AB Assembly Bill 2081.
Councilman Pitts, sir, any comments?
I think I'm as frustrated as all of you are. Sometimes our silence up here is misconstrued that we don't care, but we do care. I'm probably the closest living resident to that home on the council, so I am really concerned. But I'm also, I've been on the council now for 8 years, and this is probably the most frustrated I've ever been in my life. You know, my hands are tied. I have handcuffs on. I didn't borrow them from the sheriff. But it pains me to see all of us going through this in the city. It really does. And still have our hands tied. I hate to think that people are actually thinking about leaving this wonderful community, because this is a great place to live. I came here 24 years ago, and I don't plan to leave. So I'll be right there fighting it with you. And I think, you know, if we decide to leave, we're just going to encounter it in other communities. So I think we really do need to buckle down and go fight this thing, you know, to the end as much as possible. And it's going to take all of us. And I think the recommendations, I just want to go on the record and say that Steve has done a lot of work over the course of the last month to put together this plan that I think is probably one of the best that we can hope for right at this point in time. It also gives all of you the opportunity to have a voice in what's said and done by being a part of this committee. And I just think, you know, your vote, I mean, several people have brought it up already, your vote counts. Vote those people out of the office and get all your friends, neighbors, everybody you know, and get these people out of office now.
If they won't stand up for your rights, vote them out.
Yep.
Whatever party they're in.
Votes have consequences, and we can make a difference in that regard. I'm excited about this committee because I think it'll be a learning experience for all of us. To your point, sir, about, what do you expect? I expect research. I expect reports back to the council. I expect action to go to Sacramento and make change up there. So there's a lot of things that this committee can do and has the power to do on behalf of Villa Park. And so you do have a voice if you want to be a part of this committee. But again, I'm sorry you're going through this. I'm sorry all of us are going through it. Like I said, I live closest to, of all of us to this one home. And I will do whatever I can to keep it from impacting our community in a negative way. So that's really all I had to say.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, so thank you so much to everyone for coming and speaking tonight. We haven't yet heard from Councilman Wu, but I'm sure you hear the frustration, up here that we do all hear you. We agree with you, and we wish there was more we could do. To that point, though, I agree with Mr. Brophy. I mean, we shouldn't just roll over. I think that this plan is a good starting point, a good jumping off point. It is a marathon, it's not a sprint. And so I think there's some items, the way I actually did it is I kind of stepped through these different items. Item number one, I think, is of utmost importance. We really can't pass an ordinance. If you really pay attention to what it says about HCD in here, they could take that house, if HCD strips us of our ability to issue building permits, they could take that same house, subdivide the lot, put in 2 duplexes, and put in 4 sober living homes. I mean, stripping us of our, what is it, provisional, what do we call it?
Conditional certification.
It's conditional certification would have dire consequences for our city. So we really can't risk that at this point.
To make it even worse, in some cities, like Beverly Hills just got popped, and La Cañada, Flint Ridge, with the builder's remedy, Stephen, developers are coming in because now they're exempt from city zoning laws. They're building 6-story apartment buildings with a certain percentage affordable right next to single-family homes.
Right.
People's heads are exploding,
Yeah.
rightfully so. Right?
Rightfully
That's
so.
what happens if you lose certification.
Yeah. So that's very serious. So we really do have to tread very carefully here, and all of us on council are really aware of how carefully we need to tread in that regard, because we don't want to take a bad situation and make it even worse. So as far as recommendation number 3, the collective advocacy, I'm in strong support. All of us up here on council have been getting regular emails from CASLAR. They're very active. And actually, right now, they're supporting Assemblymember Diane Dixon's Joint Legislative Audit Committee, which is abbreviated JLAC, and they made a request of the California Department of Healthcare Services and its role in the licensing, regulation, and oversight of sober living homes. So they're taking that angle on it. And so I have asked the city manager to put a link for their survey in the next feeder, and this is something that all of our residents can directly respond to, and this is going directly to the state as far as comments to the Department of Healthcare Services on how we feel that these homes need to be regulated. So that's kind of another angle that we can take, and this is something that's coming directly out of CASLAR. So I think advocacy through that, committee or nonprofit, whatever it ends up being, is very valuable to moving forward with this. So look out for that link in the feeder, everybody. Item number 5, though, I found very disturbing as far as the homeowners association. I've talked to several residents, and nobody is in favor of making Villa Park a homeowners association. And really, I have to question if it would be of any value. Because if the state legislature has determined that these are residences like any other residence, it doesn't matter if they're in a homeowners association or not. And correct me, Todd, if I'm wrong, but I don't think that point has been litigated.
You know, it hasn't. The state has attempted to override CCNRs in certain other contexts for housing purposes, but not in this specific purpose.
Yeah.
So, I mean, usually the way the state operates is they create a problem, city tries to fix a problem, state goes, oh, you can't do that, so they make illegal whatever the city did to fix it, right? That's how it works, sadly.
Yep.
That's pretty true, though. That's pretty true.
Yeah, and further, as, the mayor said, I lived in Irvine for 10 years while I was going to college and graduate school, so I have firsthand, experience with homeowners associations, and it's not good, I saw over time how the regulations just got worse and worse. Pretty soon it was you can't leave your garage open for more than 20 minutes at a time. I mean, that is a literal rule that was made in my complex. It's ridiculous. I really don't want to go down that road at all. However, the resident task force, I think, is a fantastic idea. I would like to make one modification, if I could, which would be to not have it just be for sober living homes, have it be for all group homes. Because if any of you have been paying attention the last 6 months worth of city council meetings, we've also had other concerns about senior living homes on very narrow roads where emergency vehicles might have, trouble accessing. We have another facility for, mental health facility for adolescents that people have expressed concern over. And so I would like this task force to kind of be all-encompassing of all of the group homes, if that's possible.
That would be the vote of the council, what you guys want to do.
Any issues with that, Todd? Because I'm supportive of the same.
No, you could do that.
Okay.
Sure.
Because, there's a lot of issues, not just this particular home, there's other concerns throughout the
So,
city as well.
As we vote, you make that motion and incorporate that into the approval, whatever action you'll be taking tonight.
Thank you.
If you do establish that, just say we want to refocus it to be group homes, a resident task force on group homes, if that's.
Rather
Yes.
than singling out.
Yeah, so that would be the
Yes.
the amendment you would make to the
Okay,
motion
fantastic.
whenever
That's more
something comes up.
palatable too for a lot
Yeah.
of folks.
Yeah, and I completely agree with the speaker who said that, this is all a money grab, that home was an illegal Airbnb, before it, they've turned it now into a sober living home. So, we're all extremely frustrated by this as well, but I do feel that this strategy is a really good jumping off point. I really am behind advocating with our legislators, and this task force would be a good way to get additional residents involved and get extra voices behind that movement. So, thank you very much.
If your legislators won't get on board with this, don't vote for them. I don't care what party they're in. Starts right there. Councilman Wu.
Thank you. Again, I totally understand everyone's frustration. We are all trying to come up with a solution. I do have to commend our city manager and the city staff to come up with the 6 recommendations. I agree with try to change the wording from sober living home to be group homes. If we are going to do so, we also need to do that in number 1. I do agree that we cannot only single out sober living homes because
Exactly.
to me, maybe our attorney can speak on this. I don't want someone else to come to us as a city saying we are discriminating only sober living homes. If we're gonna go after correct action, we should correct all of them in one big scoop. So I think if we are going to go that route, that is actually one of my questions, then we need to modify number 1 and number 6. For number 3, if I could ask the question, I agree with participating and take the lead on it. In the report, it stated overall they are looking for $195,000. We as a city, if we participate with 7,500, just a simple math, that equate to 26 cities. In Orange County, we have 34 cities. Does this mean there are some other cities are not participating?
No, I believe the 195,000 is their estimated budget. They are requesting, in case some cities don't want to participate, that they're not assuming that there'll be 30, is it 34 cities now? 34 cities are not all going to participate. Some do, some don't for various reasons, but they're assuming that this is the budget they need to operate on. So they kind of built, what is the budget they want to accomplish? 195,000.
Can I add to that, though? There are community partners that are also contributing, and it's more than 7,500. So the 7,500 is a city portion.
Yes.
But there are community partners, big organization, big groups that would be contributing as well.
Do you have any further comments, sir?
If you have something to say, what I...
No, go ahead, finish.
Oh,
sir.
I just want to make sure that we are participating, but we are not paying more and not paying less. My point is, we should pay our fair amount. Again, we as a city, as everyone knows, our city may be our property may be wealthy, but our city is quite poor. So we have to do our diligence, try to really look out every single penny. That's one reason why I truly believe we should not have any litigation, because that's $6 million may come up with nothing, no possible end result. So I just want to make sure 7,500 is the sheer amount. For number 6, I do want to say, I do understand, I would imagine all the residents are here. You are all direct neighbors to this potential property, but this is a citywide issue. This is not just particularly in certain pockets. As our city manager had mentioned, in the past, there were 2 of them operating, not in your neighborhood, not around Lincoln. In fact, they were around my neighborhood. So the reason why I'm bringing this up for number 6, the city staff is recommending 10 members from the city. I hope you all will understand. I expect 10 residents, members throughout the entire city, not just from particular pockets, especially from Lincoln. Because if we are able to, hopefully, this property will not operate. No one guarantee another property will pop up. So I think we need to have a diverse, equal representation, even though we are a small city, but we still have enough differences from different point of view and different way of living. So I want to make sure, in case all the 10 members that you guys see, I hope you guys won't be upset that, oh, how come someone else coming not from my neighborhood? Is because I feel we need to be equal as far as representation. So that's what I want to mention.
Correct me if I'm wrong, there are individual choices of each council member too.
So what I've tried to do is allow everybody to have.
Geographically, they will be.
Yeah, just because you all live in different parts of the city, that I'm assuming that you would either reach out or however you would pick, but it would be your recommendation. Hopefully, we would get like the councilman says, a diverse group.
Yeah.
That was not representing just one part of the city, but the entirety of the 6,000 residents we have here.
You never know where a home may pop up next, so it should be representative of all of us and all of our geographic areas. Thank you for your comments. For this,
Just one more comment.
go ahead.
Sorry. I do agree that we should think outside the box. If we are able to send this link to the homeowner of that particular property, that the homeowner know the issue that we are dealing with, so hopefully the homeowner will just, magically stop, but I don't know. But at least think outside the box. We should inform, hey, we have this many concerned and residents, and maybe hopefully the actual business will come to our council and explain how they're gonna run it and what kind of guarantee they would do it. I understand that won't please the neighbors. I understand that, but at least we could have some kind of dialogue with them. That's, again, try to think outside the box. Thank you.
Sure, of course, sir.
sorry I didn't bring this up earlier, but many of the sober living homes belong to associations. And they, in order to belong to those associations, they have to follow certain rules. And one of the rules is good neighbor rules. So I think if we do it, and I asked the task force to take a look at this, to find out, if any of our units in the city belong to any of these associations, that we monitor that very carefully, and that if we see things that are not kosher, that we will go to those associations, and they could be, that's how they get their referrals, is through the association. So keep that in mind as you're doing your research and so forth, and find out if they belong to certain associations and monitor it, and then we, as a group, can take complaints to them, and the last thing they probably want is to be referred out of that agency or out of that association, because that's how they get their money. So just a thought.
Thank you very much. No, not at all. Very good comments. Thank you for those. For the sake of time, I'm going to make a motion with the friendly amendment to incorporate all homes, group homes. So we're not singling out one particular group. I think there's some, not just functional, but legal consequences that are beneficial to doing that. Yes.
Of any nature, that you would want to do it in 1, 2, and 6.
So is my motion, so moved.
Well, so what about the adding some sort of language about asking for the state's help in identifying, with the Fair Housing Act and the California Department of Health Care, and being able to request? Is there anything that we could add that, should we suspect a group home? It doesn't even have to be sober living, right? It could be, retirement home. It could be anything that if we felt that there was a need based on potential safety or, well-being issues, that we could ask the state to step in? Is that something that we could get on board with,
I
or
think
no?
the safety, we'd have to clarify what safety, because if it's the safety of the residents, et cetera, that's already addressed in the criminal law, et cetera. But if you're talking about the safety of the residents,
The resident in the home.
right? We can easily do that. That doesn't require an action here. We can do that. I'll just do that. That's no problem.
That's just
I
a
can
letter from
contact, that's
staff.
just a direction to staff to do it, and we'll do it right away. I'll notify them tomorrow morning. That's no problem, or they won't, I'm not guaranteeing that they respond,
Of course not.
but I can certainly take action to at least go on record.
Are you good with that?
I'm good with that.
Okay. I made the motion, just for the sake of time. I have a second, got a motion, second. Please vote.
Passes 5-0, with the understanding that number 1, 2, and 6 are group homes, and the reference to specifically sober living is removed and replaced with group homes. Correct? Is that, everybody understands that?
Thank you. Next up, looks like we have the city manager report. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I think you're right. You're right. Yeah, so next month, we will be coming, just as a follow-up, we'll be coming back, and I would appreciate if you guys could all provide me with your list, because I'll have to go public with that list when we publish the agenda. So if you could go public with your recommendations or your nominations, if you will, whatever, to be for the task force.
Okay.
As soon as you can, whatever that date may be.
Okay.
But I have to publish 72 hours in advance, so give me as much warning as you can. That'd be great.
Understood.
And
Everybody
it's-
clear on that direction?
Yeah. So
Okay.
just, and then,
I'm sorry, when does he need it?
we meet August, what's our
No,
next meeting?
when do you need ours?
So I have to, August 22nd, so 21st, 20th, 19th, 18th, 20th. So that Friday before, I have to publish.
Okay.
So I need sometime that week, and I'll plug in the names whenever.
Okay.
But it will be, candidly, it'll be a consent item, because it's just appointment of individuals, and there's not, the discussion's already been had, if you will, and you're creating it, but it's, that's what'll happen. So if you could just notify me sometime during that week before, like Wednesday, that would be great.
Okay.
Whatever the Wednesday before. Okay, so 21st. If you could all notify me by the 21st, that would be great.
Okay.
Very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Secondly, in August, we will also be giving you an update of where and what actions we're taking or will need to be taking, and sort of a planned schedule for getting final certification of our housing element. We've got some zoning issues, and we have to update our general planned element with respect to that. So that will happen. I might have mentioned it, but our consultant unfortunately passed away. So we kind of took a hiatus for like a couple weeks to let everything sort of settle and let our consultant kind of figure out staffing, whatever. But we'll be coming back to the council in August, sort of as a presentation with no action because everything's already been approved at this point, but just giving you timeframes. Here's when the zoning actions will take place. Here's when the public notices will go out, those kinds of things. So you guys can also like answer questions. And when you're, we still have that process to go through. And I think it's important so you know that we do that, because if the state comes back eventually and says you're not making progress, you're just stalling down there. No, oh, we presented things, we have a plan, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we're taking actions. So the state watches our council meetings, so just be forewarned. And then, well, they do, so whatever, they do. And we are out to bid for both our slurry seal and the Saravilla project. We'll see what happens with that. It was very, very successful that City of Orange has, despite some budget issues, has agreed that the engineer's estimate went up a little bit, and they've agreed to cover their proportionate share of the increase. So I just, FYI, we've been very fortunate there. We'll also be coming in August. There will be, well, I guess school starts in late August here in Orange. But I think late August, early September, both the principal of Saravilla and the principal of Villa Park High School have, and we're working with the sheriff and having an e-bike presentation training. That's all, they'd like to do it as a new student, not new student, but a student orientation at the start of the year. Better way to say it. Anyway, so with that being said, I'll give you the dates out there, and they want to do it at the high school and the junior high, so it's where they're comfortable. The parents are comfortable going, so they're not coming here, and why are we going to City Hall when we, they don't. So we'll be doing that. And then lastly, Bill Terran's last day will be August 2nd with us. So we'll be arranging some sort of little get-together in his behalf. But I just want to give you that. He's working on special projects for me, but mostly he's cleaning up odds and ends and files and things and orienting the new people that we've got on board, contracted. So, and I guess I need to mention, we are experiencing at this point, which is, I think, a sign of the times with the economy, a 50% reduction in our building permits being pulled. All right? That being said, we are probably going to back down on the number of hours we have our front counter work, which we don't need somebody sitting there waiting for somebody to walk in the door when they're not walking in the door. So what we'll probably do is we're going to work out various schedules, find out which days, but it'll probably be, instead of 3 days a week, 2 days a week or something along those lines. We'll play it around, but we have the ability now, which is the foresight of the council approving the contract. If I had a permanent staff, I wouldn't be able to, I'd still be paying them, but if I have a contracted staff, I can just reduce the number of hours. So it's going to save us some money, but we are, I don't know if it's inflationary costs or what's going on, but the building permits are 50% dropped as a trend we've noticed over the last several months. That's a little bit concerning, and hopefully that trend will change, but it is what it is right now. So anyway, that's all I have.
Thank you very much. We're going to go to Mayor and Councilmember Matters, item 10. Now is the time for Councilmember meeting attendance report, starting with Orange County Mosquito and Vector Control District.
Thank you. We are dark in July, however, vector control still works. Increase in Aedes mosquito as projected with the heat, and Huntington Beach just tested positive for nine mosquitoes just tested positive for West Nile virus. So before I had reported that West Nile virus had not come to Orange County yet, and so now it's in Orange County. So again, just watch, containers that might have any kind of water, even just a little droplet. And then the incidence of dengue fever is still very much prevalent. And so again, if you're still going on those trips, and Florida is one of the worst places, but any place that's humid, if you see a mosquito, kill it. Don't feel bad about it. That's it.
Thank you. Orange County Sanitation District.
Oh, excuse me, didn't turn it on. We approved the fiscal year 24-25 and 25-26 budget. It's a $232.7 million a year budget. And a capital improvement plan of $223.1 million over the next year. So in the administrative committee, we saw plans for a new vessel since the state law has required us to comply with environmental regulations that have been imposed, as most of the commercial fisheries are going to have to do and so forth. So they're looking at a new boat to go out and do testing in the ocean. I didn't realize they covered that much space. They cover 185 square miles in Southern California waters, testing and so forth. So quite an interesting proposition. I think we vote on the boat in the board meeting tomorrow night. So that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. OCFA, we have our monthly meeting this Thursday, and Budget and Finance, I should say, the Budget and Finance Committee was canceled for this month, so nothing to report. Moving on to Orange County Library Advisory Board.
Real quickly, before we jump out of the library, Irvine has approved the withdrawal from the Orange County Library System, which means about $9 million will be removed from the system as revenue, with $4 million they use for expenses. So bottom line, there is a potential impact on our branch. We'll have to figure that out. It's sort of the scenario that they talk about with OCFA. I think they've had the same discussions over there with maybe a different outcome. But bottom line, that's something that we'll have to follow a little bit because it could affect the smaller branches, et cetera, that are left in the library system. Irvine has 3 libraries. 2 of them will be, all 3 will be gone. And again, it's something that I just want to alert you to. You'll see some articles in the paper coming out, but it has a very potentially a very big impact on our library here.
Thank you. It's very disappointing, and appreciate the advisory. Orange Unified School District City Schools.
There was no meeting. However, I would like to tell everyone that school will be starting at all OUSD schools on August 21st.
Thank you. Law Enforcement Advisory. I'm happy to report we had a meeting this past Wednesday, July 17th. We went over the crime statistics that were previously discussed. The Neighborhood Watch Program, which has a very healthy roster of 250 households now. We went over license plate readers. We had a couple of good questions, one which corresponded to auditing of the use and some concerns about that, and that's going to be drilled down on further as we go through the RFP process. And I know that I think Captain Batella has a due out on that. 4th of July fireworks enforcement, we discussed that. Little better. I think and you'll have to forgive me, I was in, unfortunately, Phoenix, where it was 112 at a 14U USA National Championship baseball tournament. Trust me, I'd rather be here. But it sounds like it was a little bit better, at least from residents had an avenue to reach out, and it wasn't 911, which could potentially clog greater emergencies. So I think that was beneficial. Unfortunately, there were still a lot of people that, number one, misused Safe and Sane fireworks, and number two, of greater concern, purchased and used not Safe and Sane or illegal fireworks in our community and around our community. So that's unfortunate, disappointing. E-bikes enforcement. There was a very robust discussion about that. That obviously is going to be continued. I specifically brought up the fact of bicycle helmet enforcement, regardless of whether we have an ordinance or additional vehicle code violations. You are still required to wear a fastened, appropriate helmet when you are riding one. And if you are just using it as a bucket on top of your head and it's not fastened, that's not good enough, and you can be stopped and you can be cited. That's not ideal. Obviously, we want to gain education rather than enforcement, and we're working hand in hand with the schools through our town halls and the sheriff's department to do that. More to come on that. That's really about it that I had. Did you have anything further?
Probably just that National Night Out has been scheduled. So it's August 6th. So please join our Neighborhood Watch email system at villaparknw@gmail.com for more information, or we will also be putting it in the feeder as it gets closer with the time information.
Good suggestion. Thank you. That's all I have for LEAC, Villa Park Community Services Foundation.
Yes, thank you. So we had a meeting last month, and I just want to give a really big thank you to everyone who turned out for the 4th of July parade. If you were there, it was just incredible. I mean, it was probably the biggest one that I remember any time within the last few years. We had a huge turnout, and it was just wonderful to see everyone come out and celebrate. The concert in the park, we had Radio Royalty, which was an 80s cover band, and that was also a huge success. We held it this year at Saravilla Middle School, and thanks to them for hosting this event. Our residents brought out chairs and blankets and got food off the food truck and drinks, and were able to eat and watch the band. It was lots of fun. So I'd also like to give a couple reminders for upcoming events. I said last meeting too, mark your calendars for August 16th. The foundation is collaborating with the Villa Park Women's League to host Symphony on the Go. And if you've never been, it's just a wonderful event. And so I highly encourage everyone to attend that one. And the Villa Park Picnic is making a comeback. So the foundation will be hosting it on the date of the last concert in the park that I announced last month, which is August 31st, again in the Saravilla Middle School Amphitheater. So it will start at 5 p.m. with food trucks and games, and then the concert will start at 6:30. Paperback Writer, a Beatles cover band, will be playing. We will have a Taekwondo demonstration during intermission for kids, and school will have already started. So please bring out the kids for a fun kind of end of summer picnic event.
Thank
And
you.
that's all I have.
Next up, we have Housing Legislative Committee, Bridges at Kramer Place Advisory, and Orange County Older Adults Advisory Commission, led by Councilwoman Miles.
Thank you. So Housing Community Development did not meet. Bridges at Kramer Place, we meet tomorrow here at 9 o'clock. It is a public meeting, so you're welcome to come. And then for Orange County Older Adults Advisory Commission, there was no meeting. However, I think we put this in the flyer. The OAC is having a very informative presentation on Friday, August 9th at 9:30 a.m. at Easter Seals, which is in Irvine, on general benefits information for veterans and dependents. The amount of information that, his name is Eric, that comes and gives this presentation about all the different services and programs available to veterans or family members of veterans is outstanding and blows your mind. And you would not realize how many veterans don't realize how much is out there for them. So really encourage, it is not streamed because now we can't do the streaming too. But it is a public meeting, so would love for people to show up. We'll put this in the flyer, in the feeder again. But you can watch the meeting after on the website, on the Orange County Older Adults Advisory Commission, which you can find through the Office on Aging website. But if you're going to go to one of these meetings, this would be the one, especially if you're a vet or a family member of a vet or a daughter of a vet, and the services that you don't even realize are available for you. So really encourage anyone to come. That was it.
Thank you. Now we will move on to individual council member information items or announcements, starting with Councilman Wu. It is 9:31. I'm sure this will be quick. Hint, hint.
Absolutely. I just want to say I have attended the Foundation 4th of July parade. That was a lot of fun. And attended OCFA Awards. It's really awesome to see how many firemen have received their award. One sad thing, though, half of them were not able to attend the award because they were fighting the fire somewhere else. This past month, also attended the concert in the park. I also attended the OCA's, the Sheriff Department Tech Center ribbon cutting ceremony. Just get to tour that brand new building. It's very impressive, but highly recommend residents who check out their museum that they are developing. That's really cool that they even make a jail that you can go in to feel. I also have attended the Friends of Villa Park Library. They put on the author events, George Geary, Made in California book. He talked about all the different restaurants, especially fast food that was founded in California, and he had done the history, pictures, a lot of restaurants I didn't even know about, their origin. So that was really cool events. I really encourage the residents to participate. The library, especially what our city manager mentioned about Irvine is leaving. So we definitely need to do whatever we can, try our best to keep Villa Park a library here by showing up to their events and share our love for books. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to just interrupt real quick. Is there anything that we can do to show greater support for our local branch?
No, I've already been in contact for actually several months.
Okay.
About the negotiations. The county did negotiate a semi-favorable deal with Irvine, I think.
Okay.
It's being discussed. But long-term, the implication is long-term. So I think what we need to do is continue to support and stay diligent in getting involved in negotiations. So I've already sort of put in our placeholder
Thank you.
name.
Thank you. Councilwoman Miles.
Thank you. In interest of time, I'll just shorten it to two things. Want to say thank you to Forrest and the foundation for the 4th of July parade. I agree that was probably the best turnout, and really without a hitch, at least if there was, we couldn't see it, but because it got moved from the high school to Saravilla. Anyways, it was a huge turnout, bigger than the prior years. And then also want to give a shout out to Villa Park Little League's 10U state team, who has is still going strong. At least I think. I haven't checked tonight, but so it's the All Stars, and they won District 30, and then they won District 5, and now they're at the state level. And so, good luck to them because they have been doing really well.
Huge accomplishment, and concur with your comments with respect to the foundation and Forrest and the 4th of July. Again, I'm apologetic and very disappointed, at least from an enjoying life perspective, to not be in Southern California weather. I was in Phoenix where it was 112. Happy to see my son and his team put forth a tremendous effort and get to the quarterfinals. And many kids there were products of Villa Park Little League, and it was great to see these young boys turn into young men. So kudos. So go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, I've mentioned most everything already, the 4th of July parade, the foundation's concert in the park, and the Best and Bravest Award for Orange County Fire Department. But just wanted to give an extra shout out for that because it really was a great evening full of inspiring stories and really recognizing the heroes in our community. So thank you very much.
Councilman Pitt, sir. Last but not
Real
least.
quick, I want to thank our neighbors over at Orange, the city council, for the invitation for the July 3rd event. That was, it's always great to attend that and see all the people there and the fireworks and so forth. Next morning, we jetted off to Bentonville, good old Bentonville, Arkansas, to hug and play with our great-granddaughter for the 4th of July weekend. So it was great to be there. And it was hot there, too.
I bet it was. Thank you very much, everybody. Unless there's anything further, we are adjourned, and our next meeting is August 27th at 6:30 p.m. Good night.